Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today for VR Download. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by David Heaney from London in the UploadVR studios as we discuss the next steps in personal computing. We're wearing Quest 3 headsets with last generation meta avatars. We've got hand tracking with built-in microphones, and we've got tablets in front of us that show us the notes and comments so we can interact with our audience when we're live. Thank you to our patrons for supporting the work we do over on UploadVR.com. In case this is your first time, you can become a paying member at UploadVR.com to support our work directly. We thank our patrons by name here on this podcast and list them out on the website as well. So that includes XR Developer News, Podum, that's the developer of Smash Drums, Holonet, Mike Manzano, Justin Corcoran at Phosphor Studios, Richard Meller, Parmesan, Qubits, Steve Lucas, David Wyatt, and Deepanch. Thank you all sincerely. Everyone in our comments, Stormy, Steve, Q Creator, Davin Bigelow, and everyone coming in over the course of this episode, time traveling to catch up to us as we get into the big subjects. Wow, David, it's been a long journey and not the biggest week on record, but it still feels overwhelming when you stack up the previous weeks. David, what do we have today?
Hello, everyone. So it's great to be on our normal schedule of Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Good to see everyone starting to stream in here. A lot of regular names: Davin Bigelow, Steve One, Quentin M, Stormy Seas, Q Creator, John Birkbeck, Craig Melville, Biggs, Paradise Decay, Steve Lucas. If I missed your name, I'm sorry. A lot of you are here. So we have 11 topics to talk about today. We will first start by talking about the PlayStation 5 console price increase. And the reason that that's relevant to us is it increases the minimum buy-in price for console VR if you don't already own a console. We'll talk about why that might matter. Then we have 4 pieces of MetaQuest news. An app called Spatial Phone that lets you use your iPhone or Android phone while immersed on Quest. An app called Hauntify on Quest 3 has now implemented laser tag's continuous scene meshing, which we talked about back in May. That means that you no longer need to pre-scan your room to be able to use that, and you can easily use it in a massive house, a haunted house if you want, or a mansion, outdoors, or wherever you want. We'll then talk about Meta delisting the Quest app that let you install APKs without a PC. So it seems very clear that Meta will not allow these apps on the store once it realizes that they're on the store. And this is not the first app that has been taken down for this exact same reason. Finally, in our MetaQuest section, we will discuss Meta's CTO, Andrew Bosworth, giving an update on Quest 3's long-delayed Augments feature, those kind of mini apps that can run alongside each other volumetrically, somewhat similar to what is already there on Apple Vision Pro and has been since launch. Then we will talk about 2 media watching apps on Apple Vision Pro getting some really interesting 3D environments. So the Disney Plus app has an Alien Earth environment, while the HBO Max app has a Harry Potter Hogwarts Great Hall environment. So 2 really interesting ways to watch content on Apple Vision Pro. Then we will talk about the Chinese copycat of Apple Vision Pro, Vivo Vision. So we knew it existed before. We actually talked about it last week in relation to the announcement today. Today, it is now being demoed in 12 stores in China, and we now have the key details and specifications. I will also go on a little bit of a rant during this topic about some of the terrible reporting on VR elsewhere in the tech media, because it really, with Vivo Vision, the reporting elsewhere has been woeful. And I don't want to toot our horn too much, but please just ignore all the other coverage, because I don't think anyone got this even remotely right other than us that I've seen so far. There may be others since we've jumped on this show. Finally, we will end the show by talking about Meta smart glasses. Firstly, the Oakley Meta hoisting glasses, the displayless smart glasses that are kind of like a higher end Ray-Ban Meta. They're available to pre-order now. They're shipping next week. Then we will talk about Meta's upcoming HUD glasses. Meta Celeste, they could be called. Hypernova is the code name. We have that new bombshell report from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman saying that they will not be over $1,000, that Meta has decided to start at $800 for that product. Some really aggressive pricing there, considering all the technology in it. But of course, the one thing other than the price that we've been skeptical about on this show and many other people had been skeptical about was the monocular aspect, that the HUD, the display, is only in one eye. And so our final topic will be Meta's CTO explaining why exactly that is. Why wouldn't they just put a display in two eyes? Well, Meta CTO has given us an answer. So those are our 11 topics we'll be talking about today.
Looks like we've got Arlen out there watching us from Minnesota. Thank you for tuning in. Craig out there, the Ultimate Bag Sampler. Craig asking right up front at the beginning of the show, who's going to put down the $800 for the upcoming HUD glasses? We always love seeing where everyone is tuning in from. I see Sunny Sweden out there. Paired SDK, thank you for tuning in. Earth Witness as well. Hello, everyone. And yeah, tune in. Let us know where you're watching from. We love these details. We love seeing what headsets you're using, what your favorite apps are. Start a conversation with someone out there and find a world to jump into with someone in this community, because there's a lot of like-minded people out there. Are we ready to move through this first subject here? I was laughing that you can predict what you're going to rant on. Are you going to have any other rants today that you know about, or is it just the one rant?
Well, I'm going to start by correcting a correction in the comments. So the Ultimate Bag has said, correction, Apple widgets on Apple Vision Pro weren't there since launch. They started in Vision OS 26. You're right about widgets, but that's not the key aspect of Augments. Everyone focuses on this persistent aspect, but let's be real, you're not really going to be using your headset like that. You're not going to be wearing it all day, walking around your house. What really matters about Augments and how Meta had announced them just a few months after Apple Vision Pro is that they run alongside each other. So we'll get into this in the topic, but I promise you we know what we're talking about. On Apple Vision Pro, you can have multiple 3D volumetric apps running alongside each other. On Quest, you cannot. You can do all the 2D multitasking you want, but you can only have one 3D app, mixed reality or VR, only one open. And that's what Augments really stands to change and why it matters, and what the reason Meta announced it, right? Meta announced it just a few months after Apple Vision Pro. All of the influences there were clear. But let's jump into that first topic, indeed. PlayStation 5's console prices increasing. So Sony has now increased the price of PlayStation 5 in the United States. The digital edition now starts at $500. The version with a disc drive, $550. And the PS5 Pro starts at $750. So those are roughly $50 price increases. It's pretty obvious what the reasons are here, the tariffs and other global supply chain factors. Why this matters for VR? Because it brings the price of PlayStation 5 plus PlayStation VR 2 back up to $900. It negates some of the advantages of the price cut that occurred for PlayStation VR 2, the headset, earlier this year. And so that's not a path that a lot of people are going to take, right? The PlayStation VR 2 will primarily be sold to people who are already on the console. But I do think, if you're getting into VR, right, and you don't want the PC experience, you are, as I've kind of talked about before, the kind of person who has a long day at work, you want to come home, the last thing you want to do is mess around with some of the issues that can occur with PC gaming of, driver issues and Steam VR issues and config files and, your graphics cards randomly cutting out, all of these issues that I put up with and I enjoy as a PC gamer, but not everyone does want to. But at the same time, maybe you just don't accept the graphics of Quest, right? You want the fidelity of PC and you want the convenience of Quest and you don't care about the wire. And you don't own a PS5, but you are interested in VR. Well, PS5 plus PlayStation VR 2 is a good option. We forget to talk about this, right? It is it has its flaws. Sony hasn't been putting in the content funding and investment that we would like to see. But at the same time, it's still a great experience, right? You get these kind of gorgeous OLED blacks and contrast and colors. You get the graphical fidelity of PC. We talk about these big cross-platform titles like Behemoth, like Alien. You don't get the graphics on Quest, right? It's possible, but if you really care about graphics, you need to go for PSVR 2 or PC. So I think it's disappointing to see that the price of this is creeping up. For that $900 price, you could get a Quest 3 and a Quest 3S and play multiplayer together with someone in your family. It's disappointing to see, but understandable what the reasons are.
And hysterically, my PSVR 2 and my PS5 are in three different, like the controllers, the PSVR 2 controllers, the PSVR 2 headset, and the PS5 console are all in three different geographical locations right now, ready to be used in three different ways. I'd like the headset to be used as a hand tracking. I'd like to use the hand tracking on a PC and explore what that does, just plugging it into a 2080.
Well,
I'd like
you
to
can't,
use.
to be clear,
I
you can't
can't.
use the hand tracking on PC.
It's sitting there waiting for it. Is what I'm hoping for.
Sure.
So it's not there yet, but it's sitting there waiting for it. The controllers are in the other room, ready to be connected to the Vision Pro, and then the PS5 is at another family member's house, and that's how I've divided up the system, because it's just how failed this whole thing worked as a system together. You talked about not wanting to mess with. All right, you told me I was wrong about PSVR 2 ever running on PC. You also told me I was wrong about Steam ever running on PS5. Am I still wrong on that, David? Is that still a non-starter?
Yeah, so I think the PC aspect was, as I said before, you're right, but for the wrong reasons, right? They put it on with a minimum effort. We talked last week about how modders have brought some of these features like eye tracking and HDR partially, and the adaptive triggers. Those modders have even actually improved the controller tracking. And they say it was a pretty low hanging fruit reason behind that. So all of the evidence here is that this was a minimum effort PC support from Sony to sell some units that were stuck in warehouses. The hand tracking is a great point to bring up. I need to ask those modders actually, do they plan to try to bring the hand tracking? Is that even possible? Is the hand tracking done on the headset or is it done on the PS5? If it's done on the PS5, it's going to be a lot harder. But the good thing about the eye tracking and positional tracking is they're all done on a chipset on the headset. So they can be easily brought to PC via these modders. The Steam thing, you could definitely see a world where eventually these things are sold at much higher prices. Even at this price, they are not making money on the hardware. They make money on the software. So that's the reason I've said I find it unlikely that they're going to bring Steam to it. However, on the other hand, Microsoft clearly are thinking about these sort of things. There are leaks of Microsoft exploring this idea. But then there's no free lunch here, right? If your console doesn't only run the store from the console maker, they have to now make a profit on the hardware. So it's not a $500 PS5 anymore. It's a $700 PS5, and the Pro goes up to above 1,000. So be careful what you wish for in terms of them, busting these ecosystems open, because they have to make their profit somewhere. They're not going to start making less profit on it.
Yeah, well, I think that's the what everyone is battling with, right? Everyone feels the macroeconomic conditions affecting their lives, right? You see the prices on the grocery stores, you see the prices on everything you buy, and you see these things changing, and here's this new price here. And we try to think, oh, what does a year more of this look like, right? What do the prices look like in a year's time when the next set of hardware is all together and ready to ship, or maybe this hardware that's inside of here has come down in price, and maybe it's the same price and now the stuff inside is easier to ship. Like that is the overall idea here with consoles, is eventually it becomes much cheaper to make these consoles. But
Eventually, yeah.
yeah,
But I think recently we've been seeing an aberration in terms of global supply chains. For much of the 21st century, the supply chain situation was improving. Everything was getting cheaper and better. But then after kind of COVID and with inflation, there has been a disruption there that has not really gone away. The other thing you have to realize is that often at launch, they're actually making a loss. On launch day, a lot of consoles, people don't realize this, they're actually selling it for less than they make it. So they have to actually come through that initial price and then get further and further down. And then with the tariffs now, we can't predict the future of politics. You don't know what the Trump administration is going to decide to do in 2026. Nobody does. Anyone who claims to know is lying to you. So we don't know what's going to happen there. But I think those are the kind of factors that impact this. But coming back to the Steam thing again, I think the other factor is what I was talking about at the start. The great thing about a PSVR 2 and a PS5 is you plug that in with one cable, it just works. And every game you buy on the PlayStation Store for PSVR 2 was designed for exactly your headset, exactly this hardware, and exactly your controller. You start going up on Steam, and some people enjoy this, and that's great. I do too. I'm a PC gamer. I want to make that clear. But there are a lot of people out there who They love that, and they don't want to deal with a game that was made for a completely different headset on, a GPU that they don't have, or a different, system configuration, and so things go wrong. It's made for a different controller. They have to do Steam VR input mapping. If you have the time and passion for PC gaming, that's great. I do personally myself. I want to make that clear before I get into this. But a lot of people don't want that. They just want to plug after a long day of work, big shift. They want to turn their brain off, plug the damn thing in, and have it just work.
I love that. I love to plug it in because ultimately, right, that's you only need power. Like in a lot of the situation, I've got everything I need out of the headset. That's not true with the PSVR 2. It's true for all the other standalone systems where, yes, that's such a common use case of just actually the last thing I need right now is battery. I don't need to be worried about my battery. I just want to sit back for like 2 to 3 hours and just chill. And at the 2 hour mark, I don't want to hear an alert that says, "Go plug this in." So it's an interesting thing to think about that. And then back on the Steam thing, I want to take that conversation forward to asking, what do you think we could see something like Steam Link, but PSVR Link or PSVR 2 Link on as an app on Apple Vision Pro? Do you think you could get your VR2 games on a Vision Pro?
I think that's a really interesting idea. I think that's far, far more likely than seeing a Steam app on PS5. The idea that you would still be buying your games on the PlayStation Store, they'd still be running on your PS5, but you'd be able to access from other headsets. I don't see why it would be specifically Vision Pro. If Sony wanted to do this and you want to access a market, you would do it for Quest, right? You would do PlayStation VR Link and you would allow Quest headsets to be used. You would have minor issues with things like, there are going to be missing features, right? You don't have the eye tracking on Quest. You might be using different controllers. That's solvable. I do think it's less likely. Sony is not the kind of company that likes to do these sort of things. Microsoft, I would guess, in a parallel universe where they did Xbox VR, would have done it. But I think they do kind of value this end-to-end control of the hardware and software. I don't rule it out, but I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. I mean, we'll see what these companies have in store, how this all coalesces. I think that question I asked puts a bit of the piece of the puzzle in for both of us a little bit. We'll have to see how it comes together. But you can imagine. I like that thinking of why wouldn't they go for Quest? But like that's kind of the point. It was a big surprising day when Steam Link officially came to the Quest Store, right? You were big on heralding that moment as like a changing in the market, and this would be another moment like that.
Yeah, I mean, another possibility, right, is that you get a Steam Link on PS5, but then you can already use the PSVR on PC. So there's kind of, I don't see that as likely at all. I think the possible argument for just being Apple Vision Pro, actually, coming back to it, is that the controllers are always going to be those PlayStation VR2 controllers, and it would build on that same partnership. I just wonder, would the engineering effort be worth the scale at that point, given how many Vision Pros are out there? Maybe more likely a few years down the line when you get, Apple Vision Air or something like that.
So
Maybe eventually, the PS6 just does through third-party headsets. Sony might have to wonder, do we bother making a PSVR 3? And that could be a path to it. But I think it's hard to predict what a company's going to do years down the line. I think PlayStation 6 is expected for 2027, according to the rumors I've seen.
hello to KC Chiefs Productions out there. Time traveling, catching up to us. By the time you hear this, we'll already be in the future. So keep going. You're almost there. And then Siegfried saying they don't see Sony caring about VR anymore. That's such an oversimplified view of what Sony is doing and what they are as a company. That's an international conglomerate of supply chain companies as well as end consumer providers, right? Like they provide end products as well as the products inside of your products. And so they're going to make money from VR whether or not they are the end provider of it.
Sure. I think we often use the shorthand Sony to mean SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment, which is the subsidiary of Sony that does the PlayStation stuff. You could just call them the PlayStation company if you wanted to be crystal clear. I think what the commenters are talking about is SIE, the PlayStation company, Sony Interactive Entertainment. I think there's a good argument that they don't care that much about VR anymore, to be frank. The wider Sony conglomerate, of course it cares, as you say. They make the displays in Apple Vision Pro. They have their own enterprise standalone headset for $5,000. They make a lot of the sensors that are in these headsets, right? The cameras, a lot of them are made by Sony. But if you're talking about just SIE, the PlayStation company, there's a good argument to be made that they don't really care that much about VR anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the joke being that we have 4 or 5 app stores and none of them care about VR, right? Like that's ultimately.
I mean, I would say the Meta does, right? People say they don't, but what did you
They
just
care about
try?
Horizon, David.
Well, why are they making a Deadpool VR game with Marvel? Why is Henry right now trying Deadpool VR? You know,
Yeah, I mean, good. The Meta makes decisions 2 to 3 to 5 years out on hiring, on firing, on where the investments lead. So we could be, you could be in for a job interview at Meta, and the division that you're applying for is already toast, right? Like that's how that works sometimes. So that doesn't hold up. And I want to go back to the PS5 thing here, and I want to talk about my problem that I started off this week with. I I emailed or I messaged Walkabout Mini Golf. I said, "What's the minimum viable PC to have running your game so that I can get 4K recordings out of my PC and do 4K tours for my future videos on our channel?" And I don't have an answer to that yet. I want to find out what that PC is or what the graphics cards requirements are. But the dream was to just wire in an Ethernet cord to my Vision Pro from that PC. And I'm sitting here as I'm talking to you about this, David, and ultimately a $550 PS5 is exactly what is missing in my home right now to be my holodeck. And honestly, all the PS5 would do is sit in a corner and have one VR room open on it, whether it's Walkabout Mini Golf or whatever other social networking platforms they're able to carry on the Sony platform. But I want that open with a room code open on it. And I want to just be able to put a wire into my headset to go to that room.
Isn't that plugging a PSVR 2 into a PS5? Walkabout Mini Golf is on. Yeah, I'm confused
Yes.
with what you mean here.
Right. I can plug a I
Isn't
can
that called playing Walkabout Mini Golf
working.
on PlayStation VR 2?
I can be working in my Apple Vision Pro and then hear a knock at the door and go into the other room, which is Walkabout Mini Golf, in about 2 to 3 seconds. Without plug, you just said plugging in, connecting right now. I'm talking 2 to 3 seconds to go
Just
open the app.
leave the headset plugged into your PS5. Why not just leave it plugged into the front at all times?
That's all good. And what I'm talking about is you add that functionality to an operating system with multitasking, and you're working, you're doing other things, and then VR calls to you.
Yeah,
at
I get
any
what you're saying.
moment.
It's more likely for you to use PlayStation 5's VR capabilities if you can do it from a standalone headset. You want to be able to just
Yes.
open the PS app on your Apple Vision Pro. I mean, there is a good analogy here, right? Where they do allow you to do this for flat screen gaming, right? The PlayStation app that's used for their portal, that same tech is on Apple TV and Google TV/Android TV and Android phones, and you can remote into your PS5 and play games. So it's not out of the question for Sony to do this for Quest. It does get more complicated for VR when it comes down to things like controllers. I think we're kind of
Yep.
agreed here, though, that it's most likely to happen through the Vision Pro partnership. I could totally see it happening. It's just whether Sony thinks it's worth the time, and it comes back to what our commenters are saying: do they care enough about VR?
We'll see. Let's get on to the next news, David. I'm more excited about the possibilities now after talking this through with you, though. But we got to move on here.
Look, I would love it to happen. I would love it too. I'd love to be able to jump in to PlayStation VR 2's graphics and use it like we use PC VR from our standalone headsets. I hope if any decision maker at Sony is listening, please do it. But yeah, let's talk about the next topic. So we're going to talk about our 4 MetaQuest news topics now. The first is Spatial phone. It's an app that lets you use your iPhone or Android while immersed on Quest. So I actually used this app a couple of months ago, and I was going to report on it and write about it. And halfway through, I scrapped the article because technically it sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. The latency is really high, the frame rate's low, the quality's a bit blurry. But then, Ian was talking to one of our freelancers, Craig Storm, and he said, you know what, like despite the technical limitations of this, I still find it useful. I don't care if the latency's high and it's blurry or whatever. I like being able to see my phone even with these technical limitations. So we did put out an article saying to people, look, technically this is not a great app, like on a technological level, but maybe you find it useful anyway. And I think that's a very interesting perspective here, that even if this feature is something people want so much, and to be clear, what this does is it brings you your phone usable in VR, controllable with the controllers or touch with your hands, as a floating 2D window that you can have open as a multitasking window in Horizon OS. So that's what it does, but technologically, it's not great from a latency perspective, but people find it useful anyway because they want this feature so bad.
Yeah, well, it's almost like an e-reader screen, right? An e-reader screen will like work in certain instances pretty well, but not in other instances really well. And so, like, if you just have this in the background and a notification pops up on your phone, it could be pretty useful to be able to glance over and see this notification nice and big on the screen without getting pulled out of your Quest headset to go look at that real quick. So even then, that's a huge time saver. Like, you could potentially save minutes or hours over the course of weeks or days. Like, it starts stacking if you start saving little minutes this way. And so that's kind of what's interesting to think about this use case. And Craig wrote about it out there, and we had this back and forth where all of us basically have tried this app and had to have a conversation where it's amazing how far there is to go to have the latency of it, like to feel like your phone is in VR, really floating in there.
Yeah,
We're so far away from that.
Well, no, this app is. I want to be clear that, like, again, no offense to the developer, but this is just badly done on a technical level. I think a developer like Guy Godin, Virtual Desktop, if they were to put their mind to this, I'm sure they don't have time, but if they were to do something similar, they could deliver extremely low latency. Apple does it on Vision Pro. Of course they could. I've used apps that stream your phone to your PC
This uses the broadcasting API from Apple, and I don't know what latency is built into that.
I don't think the technical issues on the capture level. It's on the transmission level. It's something they're doing. I've used apps that people are pointing out in the comments, there are apps you can sideload, like AnyDesk, that do this with low latency. Again, no offense to the developer. I'm glad it's out there. If people find it useful, it's $12. I wouldn't pay $12 for it, but if they find it useful, great. But it's not technically impossible in the year 2025 to deliver a low latency stream from your phone that you can control. I think if someone was to, someone very technically competent like E. Godin was to try, they could pull it off. And I actually know that it's possible because there's another app that does it. And I've talked to people who own Motorola phones. Moto has an app on Quest that does it. They give you not only just that, your phone controllable as a stream, they also bring in notifications as if they are like system level notifications. They have this thing called mobile desktop where you can actually have independent apps from your phone running. So you kind of have like a phone multitasking system. The massive limitation, of course, is that it is only for Motorola phones. But if you are one of the few people in the comments who uses a Motorola phone, go and you have a Quest, go get this, because you get all of what we're just describing in a way that works with really low latency and high quality.
So a couple things there. So Guy Godin replied, the creator of Virtual Desktop out there watching us, thank you for tuning in. You need to install an app on the phone and run it, and it's not a great workflow in my opinion, and it doesn't really add much value. That's kind of what David's original reaction to the app was initially, like why we didn't cover this months ago was, I don't see the value enough in this. And then Craig brought it to us and he's like, I do see the value in this. And we looked at it again and we're like, oh yeah, there is value just in this. And I think that's the overall point here is David, you're right that so many people could do this, but it's only going to be up to the manufacturers or the operating system company to decide that. And it looks like friends with Motorola to try that out in the MetaQuest ecosystem, but they got to go and do that for each and every manufacturer, or go get Google to hand
Yeah.
them keys. And it's almost like a non-starter for the Quest ecosystem here on some of these things. This is a really routed around way to get what should be an OS level feature out of Quest. And
Yeah,
we
that's a
want
great point. And it brings up something that is very relevant to point out here, which is that it is an OS level feature on Pico. So it doesn't actually need manufacturer support. Pico has this built into Pico OS for the Pico 4 Ultra, and it works with really low latency and high quality. So again, no offense to this developer. I'm sure they deliver value to some people, but I have actually tried the one on Pico OS. I almost forgot about this. I've tried it. It works great, low latency, high quality, and you can do that for your PC as well. So I think this is just Meta not wanting to prioritize this, wanting you to stay within their ecosystem, wanting you to use apps on the Horizon store. There's no reason that if Meta really wanted to, they couldn't pull this off, I think. A couple of commenters are pointing out, that they wish Apple Vision Pro had actual control here. Apple has confusingly named the feature on Mac iPhone mirroring, when really it should be iPhone control, because you can mirror your iPhone into Vision Pro right now. You have been able to since, I think, Vision OS 2, as you reported on, Ian, but you can't control it. So we have to make a subtle distinction here between seeing your phone in VR and controlling your phone in VR. And why this app Spatial Phone is useful is that it is viewing and control, albeit with its tech issues. It is viewing and control. And people, I do see now that people find this useful. I've been contacted by people who say that they find this useful. We both, I think, agree that Meta should be building this into the OS, just like Pico did.
And they're not going to until they, decide, they show off how they're forking Android. There's like it feels like there's a fork in the road ahead for Meta that they have to reveal.
I don't think it's to do with forking Android, right? Pico just does it through their app, right? Pico is a fork of Android. You don't need Google support. These systems all have really great low-level screen capture APIs. That's not the issue. The issue with this app is the networking part. I'm sure Guy Godin can speak to how you could easily build an app that captures, but the difficult part is how do you get that across the network in a good way? And it's not technically impossible. In the year 2025, this can be done. If you put, I think the developer of this, I had looked into them shortly, like this is one of their first apps and they're kind of a newbie developer. Great, I hope they get better in future. But if you put an experienced software developer on this and give them the time and resources to build this, they could deliver very low latency. So, they could. I've seen it done.
Well, Guy is bringing up Immersed having this feature years ago, and I did test that in Immersed years ago, and honestly, it felt very similar to what I'm feeling out of this right now.
With the massive caveat that was only while you're in Immersed, the full space app, right? You couldn't bring it up as a multitasking window. So the good thing about Spatial Phone is like you can be in VR chat or Batman Arkham Shadow or whatever game you want and have this open, right? It's a multitasking window. You could have it right now. You could be sitting here. I could be sitting here with my phone floating beside me if I wanted to right now. That's the good part of this app, that it isn't, a full VR app. It is just a 2D window.
Yeah. Ready to go on to the next one? Any comments you want to respond to first? I see everyone is talking about everything over there. It's people talking about how solid Pico is. I like the comment of the Boba 3 Quest 4 now. There's everyone is talking about the headsets that David got to see last week at SIGGRAPH. If you aren't, if you missed that episode, please go back an episode and watch it and really dive deep into the future of VR there.
Yeah, please do. I think James Howe brings up a very good comment here, which is that if you do use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, you get that in Quest. I think outside of the United States, a very high percentage of the notifications you would be getting on your phone are from WhatsApp. So you already do get that in your Quest. We should point that out. But Meta used to have a feature for phone notifications, right? You used to be able to get your text messages and your calls in Quest, and they didn't do that. Things like calls, there's no technical reason they can't do that, right? Any Bluetooth device you use can do that. These are decisions that Meta makes.
Clay's comment, I go into VR to escape the phone. I absolutely love that comment, and it is worth us all reflecting on, right, from time to time. that the beauty of VR is being an escape at its core, but you're going to stay there longer if you can have a do not disturb option at the OS level to keep that phone away and, only let maybe the two contacts who you care if they die get through to you when you're in VR, right? Like it can work that way. You can set up a Vision Pro that way today, and I expect Google's Android to work similarly.
Yeah, I mean, these are all optional features. Nobody forces your phone in there with you. I think that's a great perspective that you're in VR to get away, but there are practical reasons, right? As a parent, you need to be able to get a text message or a call from your child if they are of that age that they have a phone. If you're a carer for someone elderly, for a lot of people, they have lives in which there are people that they need to be contacted with. And as much as the ideal of being away from your phone is great, right now, all it means is they have to keep their phone in their pocket when they play VR and take their headset off and check the message anyway. So all you're doing is making their life more convenient.
You're a little less present. You're even a little less present because it's there in your pocket.
You're absolutely right, Ian. That's a great point. You're always kind of thinking about it. You might check it. All we're asking for from Meta is to integrate these things better so that you don't have to do this. And as you said, it'll be very interesting to see what Google's Android XR does around this. We'll have to see that when we do eventually see that Samsung headset.
We've done a lot of crapping on Meta's stuff here or this soft here, but let's remember that quote from Andrew Bosworth of just what they better ship, right? Like he smirks in those Q&As and says they just have to ship, don't they?
Yeah. Specifically, he was asked, like, how do you compete with Android XR? And he said, by existing. It's a good point for now. It stands for now. We will review Android XR and the Samsung headset when it's out. We will play no favorites at UploadVR. We never do. We will give it the same grilling that we give any other company and the same praise for whatever it does right. We'll have to see. The one thing I don't think we should kind of do is give it too much praise for anything before it does exist, right? It's all fine and well to talk about what you do well until you ship. Let's see how it actually works in the home. That's a big distinction we always make. Demos are one thing, hands-on tailored experiences where the PR people are guiding you through something. That's one thing. How it really runs in your actual home, completely different thing.
Yeah, I love David's setup there, right? Because the person who's guiding you through, they're always sitting over your shoulder going, how is it? Is it good? Is it good? Did you like that? And it's not the same thing as like, what the hell is that button? And pinching at it in the corner over here, right? All right.
Yeah, and even for headsets, there are things like every demo you ever go to, I'm not sure if folks know this, but they have like a carpet that's designed to be perfect for inside-out tracking. It's got like high contrast pattern features. The lighting is designed to be perfect. Everything is demoified, and that's very different to how does this thing fare at night in my room, how does it fare outdoors or in a hallway, all of these little things that are kind of curious. How does it work on a real Wi-Fi network, and all of these tiny little details that you don't get until you have it in your home.
James House comment here talking about it sounds like a push notification system. David, my Garmin watch does that without mirroring my phone. Absolutely. And you can have your phone number be on your watch if you really wanted it to be. So you could convert your phone to your watch and then have a virtual watch, a virtual phone interface pop out of it in VR if you really wanted, and reduce the phone, quite literally into this little space on your wrist. And like still do the same thing I'm discussing. Do not disturb settings. Take it a step further. That little watch, you can set a per person haptic ringtone effectively for every single person in that you care about again, right? So you could get 4 successive taps that mean your spouse is trying to reach you inside of VR. So you're here in VR, you don't have a phone anymore, you've got just a wristband or a watch on your wrist, and a phone call comes in and you look up at it and up calls, you see who it is right there, but you didn't have to. You just got the little wrist tap that tells you who it is without even looking at it.
Yeah, as I think we'll talk about near the end, I think Meta hopes you'll do that with their glasses. At some point, Meta glasses are going to get, LTE or even 5G. And at some point, just like you mentioned with smartwatches, they will be able to have a cellular connection. It's inevitable. that it will happen at some point, and Meta will hope that the answer to your phone is that you don't need it anymore because all your apps are on their system. But that is a long way off. We are still in the early days, and we will get into that in our last topic in the show about glasses.
There's an app called BitChat out there from the creator of Blue Sky and I think Twitter, right? And it just uses Bluetooth as its protocol for the back end of sharing our text messages with one another. That app runs on Apple Vision Pro. One day it'll run on Quest, and maybe we don't need even cellular to send all of our text messages to each other.
Within a distance, right? It's like it creates like a Bluetooth mesh network. I think this app is incredibly cool, but it's for communicating with people who are geographically close to you, right? If you were at a conference, you could talk to anyone else in the conference because it'll bounce off everyone's phone in a Bluetooth network. If you're on a plane that has no internet connection, you can talk to someone on the other side of the plane if there are people that have the app as it will bounce around between them. Amazing idea. Not quite the same thing as communicating with someone on the other side of the planet.
We'll get there. It'll be a relay system eventually. That'll be the backbone.
What if you're rural? What if you're in the middle of a field or on a walk in a park? It's not going to...
As soon as I get to the next Bluetooth, it'll send a little bit of code out that says, get me my messages from the network, and those messages will feed in as soon as I get back on the Bluetooth network.
Sure. I just think you're overestimating how difficult it is to, at all times, if you don't live in a city, have a constant relay of Bluetooth to get to someone. It's a brilliant idea. If you did have it on an OS level.
I love it. You're as someone that you've never used an AirTag, have you?
I have the Google equivalent, the exact same thing.
Does it use Bluetooth?
Yes, it does the exact same thing.
Okay. All right. So you have that experience. Okay.
Yeah, I know. But that's built in an OS level, right? Everybody has it. You have to realize that the adoption of this BitChat is whatever percentage of people have installed it in their phone. It would be great to have this on an OS level, but it's not going to work in rural situations right now and for a long time. Brilliant app though, amazing idea. I love the idea even for being on a plane and maybe, you're trying to save some money so you're not sitting beside your friend and you can text each other from across the plane. That's a fun idea.
Now on my trail, I'm gonna put AirTags on the trees as I go so that they can relay the Bluetooth signal as I go.
Only if Apple implemented it. If Apple implemented it on an OS level, that would be very, very different. This only works for people who have the app installed. D1 360 VR is making a great analogy for it. It's the modern day walkie-talkie. It doesn't replace your telephone, but it's great for being local. Anyway, let's move on to our next topic. This one is timed maybe just 2 months early. It should really be a Halloween topic, but they have the app update now, and I think this one is going to actually be a really big app for Halloween in our Halloween recommendations for mixed reality. So this is an app called Hauntify. It's been around for 3 years now. Since the release of Quest 3, it has supported, meshing your environment. It used to be you had to manually mark out your walls, the horrible old days of basic mixed reality on Quest 2 and Pro. But on Quest 3, it would use Meta's scene meshing system. And I think most of us in the comments have used it. If you haven't, on your Quest headset, when you set it up in a room for the first time, you can pan your head around the room and have it generate a 3D environment mesh. And then apps can use this mostly for mixed reality to blend the digital and the real, right? The virtual and the physical, by leveraging the scene mesh. The big flaw that we've been talking about on this show for a long time now, though, is that is one moment in time when you happen to scan this. It doesn't incorporate, did you move furniture? Was there someone standing in the room during it? Because their body shape will be baked into the mesh. There are many, many flaws with this static one-time mesh capture system. And that's why we were so impressed by what a developer called Julian Treveri managed to do back in April. And we reported on this, how they were able to implement, using the depth API from Quest, which gives you like a real-time per frame coarse depth map, continuous scene meshing. So it's not using meta system at all. It's a custom solution that uses the depth API information to build up a scene mesh continuously in the background, constantly over time. And so the practical advantage here is you don't even need to have done that room scan. So you can go into a new room that you've never set up your Quest in before. You can walk around an entire warehouse or home or even outdoors and have this mesh generate as you walk around. And that means if you move furniture, that movement will be reflected in the mesh. In fact, even during gameplay, you can do this, right? One of the cool things you can do in laser tag, and I played around with this. Laser tag is one of my favorite Quest 3 apps. It's free. If you go try it, if you haven't, go get laser tag on the Quest store. You can open a door or close a door as a gameplay mechanic, a physical door. So someone is shooting at you through a room, you run out and close the door, and then they can't hit you anymore. Or you open the door and use it as like a temporary shield to shoot into them and then close back. These are amazing real-world mixed reality mechanics that cannot be done with Meta's static scene mesh system, and why Julian Treveri's system here is just so breathtakingly brilliant for mixed reality. So the news today, that brings us to what we're actually talking about. Hauntify has implemented this code because not only did Julian Treveri develop this, they released it for free on GitHub and said any other developers you want to use it, go use it. I think the open source spirit of software development is just beautiful in the sense that they have develop something and just let the world use it so that everybody's software and everybody's apps can be better. And so, yeah, Hauntify uses this. As you can see in this kind of promo, you play instantly. You don't have to do any setup. You can walk around an entire home. You can literally go to a haunted mansion and put on a Quest 3 and have it turn into a haunted house. You can even use it outdoors. They've promoted that as an idea. And so if you're wondering what this app actually does, it turns your house into a haunted house, and there's all kind of fun little mechanics. It's not super deep, but I think it's $7, $10, $12, somewhere around that kind of range. And I think if you have people over for Halloween, you're throwing a little party, this could be a fun little demo for people. Not for the faint of heart, of course.
Yeah, Sampler, you're starting to dig at some of my worst ideas that I've ever had. Like imagine a streaming service that meshes with DoorDash, right? And you actually get 2 payment streams. How fun you make the stream as you're delivering your DoorDash, right? You get a little bit of money from that stream, and then how much you make from DoorDash, you get your tip from the streamers. That's an awful idea. Please, nobody make it. I don't want to see that happen. But you're in our comments talking about the idea of like, what if my DoorDash delivery is actually a running from the zombies game at the same time? Like, what if I'm getting paid to run from zombies? Is kind of a crazy thought that you're hinting at, I think, Sampler. But that's there's overpromising here, right? In Ready Player One, there was the scene near the end of the movie where the armies have gathered on Planet Doom from all across the physical world, and it doesn't matter where you were in the physical world, you joined Planet Doom, right? You went to Planet Doom wherever you were, and you ran down the street wherever you were while also on Planet Doom. And it was such any one of us technical VR folks watching that went, VR doesn't work that way, while also kind of in the back of our minds going, what year does VR work that way? Like, David, am I crazy on that?
Yeah, Ready Player One, you always have to realize, is set in the year 2045. So whatever we can't do today, we have to give 2 decades of progress in there. Some of the comments here, Pastel is asking, how does this work with occlusion? Because the depth API is also used for occlusion, right? By sensing like, your hand or anything that you're holding, not as a special object, but just as a general case of something depth. They filter it out quite intelligently. They don't include things that are within arm's reach as part of this occlusion map. It's very well done. If you want to try out laser tag, it's free. Hauntify is somewhere on the order of $10 plus or minus $5. So these are not expensive things to try out. Laser tag, you can see instantly. You launch the app and you can start shooting and watch as the lasers are bouncing off your physical objects, right? You can literally shoot a chair, move the chair out of the way, and then watch as the laser goes past where that chair was and hit the ground. If you just want like an instant demo of why does continuous scene meshing matter, go get laser tag. It's a really impressive game. I want to give the background context here. D1360 VR is saying, look, mom, no LiDAR. Yeah, on Apple Vision Pro and Pico, you get all of this by default from the system level because they have active level hardware depth sensors, a LiDAR sensor on Vision Pro and an iToF sensor. Hauntify is also on Vision Pro, And it's worked like this from the start because that's how Apple Vision Pro works. It has the LiDAR. Meta is trying to do this at lower cost with just computer vision, kind of mirroring what's going on in the self-driving world with, Tesla doing their computer vision approach, Waymo doing their LiDAR-based approach. And obviously the difficulty with the LiDAR approach is it's more expensive and it's harder to scale. So you're not going to get very low cost Quest 3S level headsets that have active level depth sensing. Pico 4 Ultra is €100 more expensive than Quest 3. So they do, for the extra RAM and this physical depth sensor, have a little bit of cost in there. You can't get rid of that. There's no magic way to have more stuff for the same cost. And the trade-off here, of course, is that if you ever use the depth API, if you enable it in your app, it has a performance cost. It's not free. That computer vision algorithm figuring out the depth is not free. But I think it's well worth it for a mixed reality app like this when you're not doing a lot of, high fidelity graphics. You kind of just have very simple gameplay here where, you're being chased by monsters and you have to like pick up things. I don't want to spoil it if anyone's going to play it, but yeah, I think this is a fun Halloween demo. I'll certainly be putting this on some people's heads at Halloween.
Yeah, my inventions are like the inventions from the guy in Gremlins. I love that. Yes, I hate my inventions. Uber for arms. I wonder when we'll be able to rent out our arms to strangers to use instead of us. You think we'll get that, David? Because I think Mark Zuckerberg thinks we can have a third arm. I don't know why we couldn't rent out an arm.
What? You're gonna have to explain what you mean by that.
Well, when I talked to Mark Zuckerberg, he said we will be able to operate he thought we'd be able to operate a third limb virtually, right?
I get that part. I'm wondering the renting out the arm part.
Yeah, why can't I have Uber for arms or just give my arm out to somebody else? Why can't just a little bit of stimulation in your wrist and now someone else can actually take control of my arm?
Well, how are they taking control of your arm, though? Like the EMG tech means that they can sense what your arm's doing. And the idea there is that you think about moving a third arm, and the robotic
stimulation is a whole other problem, but it's doable.
I guess maybe, but I haven't seen anyone do it with any level of precision like that.
All right.
I guess you could rent out. Like an idea you could do with VR in theory, right? Is that you would rent out you would remote control a person by just telling them what to do. You have Twitch streamers already doing this. The horrendous trend where they do whatever their commenters say based on like a live stream. So you could be in a mixed reality headset or AR glasses and people telling you what to do. Strange idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Be My Eyes is a real app that's very useful right now for lots of people. You can log on to it and look through somebody else's eyes and help them see. It's a fantastic feature. Brandon, doable. I do not think that word means what you think it means. I love it. Yeah, the engineers in the room going, yeah. All right. We'll see. Yeah, Avatar works this way, doesn't it?
Yeah, but a physical human being. Let's not even. Let's move on to our next topic.
I like that everyone tried to figure out how to make it work. That my job here is done. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next subject.
Yeah. So this is a controversial one. I'm sure we'll have some strong opinions on this. So Meta has delisted the Quest app that let you install APKs without a PC from the store. So VR Android File Manager is this app. We talked about it around a month ago on this show and on UploadVR.com. It's from the same developer as the Quest Game Optimizer, the app that lets you, tweak resolution and fix foveated rendering and a bunch of different settings. That people really enjoy that app. So this developer put a file manager on the store, and it's a good file manager, but it has one capability that Meta did not like, and that is that you can use it to install APKs without a PC, without even having developer mode enabled. So the background context here is you can install APKs on a Quest. We all probably know this. By plugging it into a PC, and you take the APK from the PC and install it on the Quest over USB or Wi-Fi, normally USB. If you don't know what I mean by an APK, if you're new to this show, that's just the file format for Android apps. So the reason people would do this is they would get an Android app that's meant to run on an Android phone or tablet, and then use a PC typically to install it onto their Quest. So you can install the Android version of Netflix and be able to download Netflix apps. You can see here they're downloading the Android version of Firefox, for example. Meta does allow you to do this via a PC by enabling developer mode, right? So developer mode means you have to register yourself as a developer with Meta and give them, I think it's like either your credit card or your phone number, one of those two, and then you become a developer. But this app was on the Horizon Store, Meta's new name for the Quest Store. You could just download it and then go in your Quest web browser and download an APK and install it. No PC ever involved. Meta clearly didn't like that. We have here the message from Meta to the developer. We determined that your app facilitates the installation of other apps. In order to safeguard the integrity of the platform, please remove this functionality from your app and resubmit. And then Meta says they will, then evaluate whether it can go on. This is not the first app that this has happened to. Mobile VR Station had the exact same thing happen to it a few weeks ago. So it seems here that these apps get on the store without Meta realizing, because you have like an open Horizon Store where there's a lot less checking of what things actually do. As long as they pass basic technical checks, they get on. That's why you see this flood of Gorilla Tag clones. But once they have realized this, as you can see in this message, they've now taken it down. So before we get into the discussion here, I want to read out the statement from the developer of VR Android File Manager. The same developer as Quest Games Optimizer. This is their statement about this app being taken off the store by Meta. 50,000 users enjoyed real freedom to install apps on any Android device. Let me restart that. 50,000 users enjoyed real freedom to install apps like on any Android device, something Meta's lockdown ecosystem denies. Too much attention killed it. Meta doesn't care about users or devs, only control. When devs patch Meta's failure, Meta's response is to shut them down, not the first time. A solid OS and real user experience will never be Meta's roadmap. The OS is years behind and doesn't even do the simplest things like a decent file manager. The biggest problem is they don't learn from the benefits it brings to users. Any Android device can install APKs natively. Meta would have so much to gain by opening up a huge market will unfold. So you can see there, they're unhappy with this. The final background context I'm going to add here is that Pico, again, we're talking about ByteDance's Pico, does allow this natively. You can use the Pico web browser, download an APK and install it. The other background is that Apple doesn't allow this at all, not even via a Mac. You can compile your own app that you've developed inside Xcode or whatever, of course. You're a developer, of course you can, but you cannot just go and download a iOS app and sideload it onto your Vision Pro or sideload a Vision OS app. That's Apple's is completely locked down. Pico is fully, you can do it. Meta, you need to register as a developer by PC. So Meta is not fully closed, not fully open. And this is kind of the reaction you get from this developer.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of devs in a place to be able to say this. The dev obviously has a very real reason why they would say this. It's coming from someone up early in the comments. I think it was Onakazi. Was something like I thought this was the obvious end of this app at the moment it launched, with the thing you pointed out in your article being just the fact that Meta approved this at all in the first place was clearly an oversight that raises questions about how much oversight Meta is giving those submissions. So it's frustrating for this dev to have experienced this moment of hope, right? They thought that maybe Meta was just not enforcing the rules. The rules were about to change, right? Meta is actually opening up. But part of I've seen this. We've had a number of devs reach out to us with projects that really test the waters of legality in various ways. We haven't covered it, but there is a Beat Saber knockoff out there that has had various legal situations because it looks like Beat Saber, it quacks like Beat Saber. It's not Beat Saber. It's open source Beat Saber, and it's the same darn thing as all of this. And so what you have here is you've had Meta riding along on Android for, 7-8 years, more than that now, ever since Gear VR. They've been building a whole ecosystem on top of Android. And just when it was getting really, really good, Google said, thank you, right? And took it all and said, we're going to do this ourselves. And it flips the script on everything Meta was able to say over that period of we're open, we're open, we're open. Well, they have to be because they built it on top of Android, right? You can't build a closed layer on top of Android and still win the enthusiasts out there believing it's actually Android, right?
Yeah, and it's very, very difficult with the way that Android works to, make a system where you can sideload your own app, but not other people's, right? Like the reason this is gated behind developer mode is that you have to let people sideload their own applications, right? Apple has built a very complicated signing system around not letting this kind of thing happen, and it has, end-to-end control of its OS designed from the start. And I think, as you say, it will be very interesting to see how does Android XR differ. So right now, today, on a Google Pixel phone or any other Android device, you can install an APK. Of course, you can. You do get a lot of scare screens, as people say. You have these pop-ups that warn you over and over, and you have to go into the settings and disable them. But that is, I think, something people are okay to deal with, like some scare screens versus not being allowed to do it at all.
Yeah, Geek Odin's comment out there talking about the permissions, which you just brought up a little bit. And I'm sort of breaking my brain a little bit there because, like, when you give permission to a Quest, it's almost like a whole nother set of permissions on top of Android. Is that how it works? Like, you have to give Android a whole bunch of permissions to use an app, and then you're also giving a MetaQuest
No,
app additional
no,
permissions?
no. They use the same permissions, except then they have their own, but they're still Android permissions, right? Like you don't have to give it access to your microphone twice. I'll put it that way. When a game wants to use your mic for voice chat, it's requesting the same exact permission as you would for an Android app. But then obviously you have extra permissions that don't exist in flat Android, and they're implemented by Meta, and Google will have their own implementation of that. Maybe Meta kind of works in with that. I'm actually not sure what Geek Odin means when they say that the other limitation Meta puts on developers is permissions that adds friction. Please let us know what you mean by that. You say it's never brought up. We'd love to bring it up. You're just going to have to clarify exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on probably here to the next one. And we'll probably keep talking about this since it's still related to Meta, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think a lot of people are just really wondering here, what is the Android XR solution going to be? We can put all of our hopes and dreams into Google and Android XR, but we need to see what is it going to be, right?
Ship
We
it,
don't want
ship it.
exactly. We need to know what is it actually like when it ships. Creative Experiments is pointing out how they really enjoy the ability to install APKs on their Pico, and they said that they were able to install an APK that disabled sleep mode, which is really cool. So yeah, and I think I just want to point out again at this that uh, you know Apple is obviously not getting enough flack for the fact that you can't even install apps at all other than through the App Store, right? They have their test flight system, which is kind of like App Lab, but that's all through Apple's system, right? You cannot download a Vision OS or iOS app from Safari and install it on Apple Vision Pro. For their other platforms, they have kind of been forced through the EU to do that, but you kind of through gritting teeth, they've been forced. Some people are wondering in the comments, like, how can Meta take this off in the EU? How can Apple not do it? The EU has a limit, a minimum limit on how big the platform is. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm gonna throw out a random number there just for an example. It's something like 100 million users. So once you have 100 million users above that, you're considered like a gatekeeper platform. That's probably not the specific number. I'm just giving you an idea of what the EU law is. So that's why this doesn't apply here. But at some point, Meta, if everything goes well, they hope certainly that they will cross that. And then they will have to be subject to these same EU rules as well as this. Marcellus Wilson is pointing out what you often point out, Ian, as well, that Apple Vision Pro doesn't even have a port. It doesn't even have a USB port. You can't even
Yeah.
connect to it unless you buy the $300 developer strap, which requires being registered as a developer, which costs money in itself.
I paid out of pocket the price of a MetaQuest 3S in order to bring Ethernet and UVC video directly into my Apple Vision Pro. If I've said this before, if Apple simply changed nothing except put that USB-C port on the next Vision Pro and sold it at the exact same price with a much higher spec chip to give you a lot more power inside that headset, I would be there on day one trying to figure out what organs I need to sell to upgrade from this one. Although I don't want to sell that. I don't want to sell the first one. I want to keep the first one. And I'm not going to be able to afford it.
Yeah. So I do think we could be in this landscape. Again, we can't say what Android XR definitely will be. Google could change anything at the last minute. They do obviously have their dev tools out there, but we don't know what they'll ship. But we expect we'll be in a situation where you have Android XR is the most open, Apple is the least open, and Meta somewhere in the middle. That's what we expect the landscape will be.
James, I love you're going straight for the jugular there with your key question. Does Vision Pro not have a piano app that connects to MIDI via USB? That app is called GarageBand, and it does not exist on Apple Vision Pro yet, right? It needs to be made. Whatever that team is has to be toiling away at it. It's just my guess. I have no information there, but I'm waiting for it. It needs to exist, and I actually have a piano sitting over there with a USB-A coming out of it that I'm just going to turn into a USB-C. Like my dream is just put a little dongle on the end of that to change it from a USB-A connector to a USB-C connector, and then stick that right into my headset, and I'm good to go. Doesn't exist yet. Science fiction at this point, but near-term science fiction. That's talking 2 years scale for that.
I would not bet on Apple putting any kind of port into the Vision headsets.
No,
I think.
No, I'm saying GarageBand. I think is within 2 years. I think you could probably get GarageBand as software and not actually wired connection. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
point.
it'll be wireless. They'll ship it wireless, or they'll just do something crazy like computer vision sense the keys or something like that.
Chris, I did not take a discount on my Apple Vision Pro. I paid full price for my Apple Vision Pro, $3,500 out of my pocket. I did not get reimbursed by UploadVR for that headset. I wanted to make a statement to UploadVR and a statement to Apple that I believe in this technology, and I would pay full price for it. And I fucking hate it. Right? I'm sorry. I cussed on our podcast because I hate how much I had to spend out of pocket for it, but I did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that means you visually understand the cost. Like our audience brings up the price, and you're not sitting there.
I sold a car. I live in New York, so I don't need a car. But are you starting to see the pattern here? I live in the city that doesn't require a car, and I'm in a headset that I get the best of both worlds. I can take public transit. I don't have to waste time like you idiots out there with your cars, right? Like, okay, you can make fun of me. No, make fun of me for my $3,500, right?
No, that's not what I'm making fun of you for. I'm making fun of you for calling the drivers in our audience idiots.
I think it's wasted time.
In New York City, but a lot of people
in every city, it's pretty. Who likes driving, right? And all the car folks are going to pop up. But come on, let's be real about those hours spent in a car. Come on.
It depends where you live. It depends where you live. Some places have great public transport. Some places don't. It would be great to live in a world where everywhere had great public transport.
All right.
Let's move on to our next topic then.
Ride a bike. A bike is fun. Come on.
It depends where you live. I think if you live in New York, your vision of where everyone else lives may be slightly distorted. A lot of people live in rural places where neither a bike nor public transport is remotely
You idiots
practical.
Out there with your cars. Ian Actual quote. Yeah, I'm sorry. Commuting sucks. Thank you, Brandon. All right, that's driving is fun. Commuting sucks. Fair. All right, you're 16 years old. You learn how to drive. That's fun. You're 35 years old, and you've just spent a year of your life on the roadways. Not so fun.
Okay, let's talk about Quest 3 Augments. So this is a long-delayed feature. Apple has obviously taken flack from the media for all of the Siri delays for the advanced Siri, but Meta has its own equivalent of something that it announced and never ended up shipping, and that is these Augments. So these were actually announced all the way back in 2023 when Quest 3 launched. And the context here is that when Quest 3 launched, it was only a couple of months after Apple Vision Pro was announced. Apple Vision Pro hadn't shipped yet, but it was announced and Apple had shown off Vision OS. So I'll recap some of the context I gave at the start of the show, especially for anyone who wasn't here. On Quest, you can multitask 2D apps, right? You can be in the home space or pass through, or even in an app like VR Chat or this app or any game you want, and have 3, 4, whatever amount of monitors you want to have up, of 2D windows, I should say. You can be in a driving game and have, Netflix beside you. You can have your Slack open when you're inside a puzzle game. You can be hanging out with a virtual pet and have, Disney Plus open. All of these examples are things you can do. You can be playing Demio and also be watching your favorite TV series at the same time. And interesting, that's actually not something you can universally do in Apple Vision Pro. So a weird kind of tweak there. But what you cannot do on Quest is run 2 3D apps at once, a mixed reality or VR app. You cannot have, Cubism open here and then, a virtual pet app like Hello Dot open. You can't have a chessboard on your table and simultaneously be, shooting zombies coming through the wall. You cannot be in any game and, have a little volumetric tool beside you. It is strictly these siloed Android apps that run and take up full space using a full-fledged game engine. So that's one of the aspects of Augments that was really interesting, that you'll be able to run multiple volumetric 3D apps alongside each other in your space, in pass-through. Theoretically, maybe they could bring it to VR, but we'll talk only in the context of pass-through right now in mixed reality. The other aspect that I think was over considered but is less important is that they were also persistent. So just like Apple Vision Pro's Vision OS 26 widgets, you can pin these virtual photos to your wall or have a specific part of your room that's where you jump into a portal to your favorite game. That's interesting on itself, but I think it's less fundamental than the idea that these would run alongside each other. You can already build persistent apps on Quest, that you launch the app and you have something where it was before. You may not know that. It's called Spatial Anchors. It's been around for a long time. You can build an app that pins something to your wall, but not that runs alongside another app. So that's what made these augments really interesting. And the context, of course, was that Vision OS had been shown with Vision OS's shared space, where you can do all the things I just described. You can, have a volume that has a chessboard open, while another volume maybe has your virtual pet parrot sitting up there. All of these things are possible. So Meta had announced at the time that this would come in 2024, right? They said, Quest 3 is here, go buy it. It'll have augments in 2024. That obviously didn't happen. What happened instead was that Meta announced that they had to delay the feature because the technical architecture was completely wrong. And instead, they had to rebuild it from scratch. So now Meta C2 Andrew Bosworth has been asked, what's happened? It's almost 2 years from this announcement. And Meta Connect 2025 next month, it will be 2 years from this announcement of augments. And so he essentially recapped what he'd said before. He confirmed that the old approach had huge trade-offs on performance and a bunch of ways we didn't like, and we realized that the whole architecture of the system that we had built for them was wrong. It was a pretty big mess, a public one, and I've been pretty open about that. You hate to announce something on the stage and then not deliver that thing. We have a pretty good track record of not doing that for the most part, but at the same time, a thing that is worse than that is shipping something that you think isn't great and has really negative trade-offs. So we went back to the drawing board and rebuilt it, and it's taken us years. So his present tense, it's taken us years, strongly suggests to me that this is still something that is being worked on, but they have to rethink the approach. And we know what the old approach was, because as we reported on early last year, there were leaked videos that showed that this would use Meta's Spark AR platform, which is their Windows and Mac application and framework for building Instagram and WhatsApp phone AR filters. And so Meta actually, a few months after canceling augments, killed Spark AR. So you no longer can build third-party phone AR filters for Instagram and WhatsApp. You only have them kind of through Meta. And so I imagine that they kind of have likely taken those same people and either gotten rid of them or moved them on to build this new framework. So that old approach, was using JavaScript and trying to run these things in a really not performant, clever way. It goes to show something that we talk about all the time on this show, which is how well engineered Apple's Vision OS is and how difficult it is to copy that, because it's very easy to announce the same thing as Vision OS and say, we're going to have this too. It's a whole different world of how do you even make that work on Android, an OS that simply was not designed for running multiple 3D volumetric apps alongside each other. How do you make that work? Meta is going to probably, and this is just a guess, I don't have any inside info, show at MetaConnect 2025. Given Bosworth's words and choice to respond to this question, given that it's been 2 years, I would be shocked if they don't show off something, but it's going to be tough, and it's going to be something that Google has to wrangle with too. Apple has built Vision OS. It's based on iPadOS, yes, based on at the very lowest level, but they have built fundamental structures into this OS. They have fundamentally built this from the ground up for XR, for running multiple volumetric applications at the same time. Ian is in love with this capability, and I am too. And it's going to be tough for Meta and Google to do the same thing.
Yeah, so there's an article that isn't I don't think it's in our lineup today, but I do want to encourage you. This was a good time to pitch it. I'm planning to restart the VR Games Cast tomorrow as under a new brand. So we're going to call it VR Sideload, which I think is a great idea that David came up with when we were chatting about names. But it really summarizes the idea that we need a place to talk about what we do in VR, the places we go, and not to necessarily have it constrained by the idea of it being a game. I didn't like that. And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow. So I have stories with Devin Reamer, the dev over at Astrobeam, who created Job Simulator. He's got an AI voice powered game that he's been building. Very interesting work, very difficult work. I've got a great quote from him that I wanted to talk about over on the Sideload channel. And then also we're going to premiere a trailer here, Super RC, from the developer of Ultra Wings. Very, very cool trailer. And I just want to encourage you, if you see that trailer out on our channel, if you see the article come out, go, do whatever you can in terms of throwing your support behind the dev. I'll explain it when we publish the article, but devs across the ecosystem, across the Quest ecosystem, they felt like they had a lot of tailwinds behind them back in 2020 to 2022. Meta was throwing everything behind the ecosystem. The COVID pandemic had a lot of people indoors using their headsets. And it's a different ecosystem now where Meta has decided to throw almost everything against Horizon Worlds. And devs are having a tough time. So a dev that's been working on a schedule for a couple of years, expecting a bigger market than they had and a bigger push than they had 2 or 3 years ago, can't find that anywhere here. So we're going to have a long discussion across weeks about Super RC with the devs out there, with our community. We have so many great developers in our community. I invite you to come over to that discussion to be part of this deeper discussion about what we are doing in VR. So we'll get into that tomorrow. And I just wanted to mention that before we move on. But yeah, David, what else would you want to talk about before we move on to the next one here?
Yeah, so we actually have the developer of Airspace Defender in the comments, and they have their new app, Banners and Bastions. I assume it's going to be something that you talk about tomorrow, but they're giving this as a perfect example of that they would love to have this run alongside other 3D apps, right? You would love to be able to have this as a volume, that's what these are called in Apple Vision Pro, on your table, and then be able to have other volumetric apps open at the same time, but you can't. So, they're pointing out, I don't see how this would even be feasible on, this Android approach. It's a great example of an app that would really run well. The other comment I want to bring up is from James O'Loughlin, who is saying that a lot of this actually was there back in the day with Magic Leap's LumenOS and HoloLens's Windows Holographic OS. So we definitely do want to give a shout out to that, actually. A lot of those ideas went into Vision OS, and I can tell you for a fact, a lot of those people that built LumenOS at Magic Leap and Windows Holographic went over to Apple and built Vision OS. So Vision OS is not the first operating system to do this, but it's the first operating system paired with hardware that has a practical field of view that would actually make it useful. The irony with LumenOS and Holographic OS was that you could have multiple apps open at once, but you could only ever see one at once because the field of view was so small that you would have to pan around like this. In Vision Pro, I can actually have them open at once. So good point out, James, for to bring up that this has been done in the past.
The difference of getting used to the field of view over a year of use versus like really enjoying the field of view and getting like lived in with it with a VR headset when you're over 100 degrees. On that note, and why David is bringing up all these volumes, and the reason I went off on that side about tomorrow's show, VR sideload. The article I covered earlier this week, I will cover in sideload, is Project Graveyard, and that wasn't on our lineup today, but go look at the video for Project Graveyard and go look at what that developer is doing. I actually ran it on Vision OS 26, and it's got a remarkable bit that a lot of devs out there are going to roll their eyes at and go, I could do that back in 2016. So one of the things you can do is this volume is floating right in front of you, is I can look at any of these headstones and grab it and pull it over to me. And when it's pulled over to me, I can take this finger and stretch it out and make it gigantic. And then I just release, and it flies back into the graveyard. If I had, as David had pointed out earlier, Airspace Defender right here and the other game, Banners and Bastions, the new one over there, I could theoretically interact with all three of them in this casual way. Not necessarily in this active gameplay way, but maybe the games need to be rebuilt for this interaction mechanism. We don't know yet. But this is a really, really powerful idea that, wait, what I can go put this volume, four of these volumes, and actually be working here, doing something with all of you. Imagine this broadcast place was built for the Vision OS system, right? I'm doing my work or typing here at my desk, and then I just look over at one of these items, grab a thing off of it, and go, oh, that's great. Put it back over there on my shelf. David and I have to go and do Google searches for all the facts in our articles, but there's no reason why I couldn't have a graveyard of facts listed out here and just remember spatially which grave it is each time and go, oh yeah, what was that date? Oh, okay. And then go back to my typing. That you cannot do your work in a Quest this way. It's a complete flip of the entire thing you're doing in VR for. And honestly, like you did a great job earlier in this with James out there pointing out all the credit that Apple should get for the ideas that it explored with this operating system. My question is, did this idea kill the Quest as a brand, and they have to go back to they have to scrap a lot of things in order to give people new expectations for this?
I wouldn't go that far, but I do think it obviously had a huge impact on the development of Horizon OS. I think you do see Meta going back to the drawing board for a reason. It's probably not just performance. Apple has set this benchmark. And I think this old idea of just trying to, shoehorn Spark AR in here and run all this on JavaScript in the home space, they're probably hopefully thinking of something much more fundamental. And just to kind of really recap here, because people are kind of exploring in the comments, how do we get this in Android? Why isn't it a thing? I just want to quickly explain the kind of tech here. So, in your Quest, every time you launch an app that is a VR mixed reality app, it is its own island. It's a silo. It is a full game engine running to create this 3D experience. And so theoretically, you could just, for mixed reality at least, try to run two at the same time and kind of take the transparency of the background and blend things together. But from a performance perspective, that would be a complete and utter nightmare. You would literally every time be duplicating all of the core rendering of each game engine. you'd be having the performance to run double the apps, right? So the difference in Apple's shared space, why is it different? Essentially, the shared space of Vision OS is the app. You're only really running one app because you can never really get around that without some crazy architectures that I've seen explored but are very impractical. It's the app, and each app that's running in that space, each volume is providing its 3D assets, right? It's providing its models and telling Apple where to put it, telling Apple's shared space where to put it. It is listening for interactions like gaze and pinch. It never actually gets your eye tracking, your hand tracking in the shared space. It only knows when do you gaze and pinch, what's the 3D coordinate. And Apple, its shared space does all the rendering and lighting, right? You never need to do the rendering or lighting as the developer in the shared space. It uses your real room's lighting and shadows and incorporates that all in. If you go into an environment, it incorporates that environment. All of the little physics and interactions and audio are done for you. You run some code, obviously. It's run for interactions and what you want to actually happen in your app, the behavior. But the core low-level stuff is all running in this giant shared space. And so this does have a trade-off, right? There's less developer freedom, but over time, what we're seeing is Apple give volumes more and more freedom, and I want to see them push really hard in Vision OS 27. I want to see moving volumes, right? I want to be able to have pets that are running in the shared space. Right now, Niantic's Hello Dot has to be a full space app, right? The big flaw of Vision Pro is that this shared space is all fine and good, but so many apps actually still today have to run in a full space to get the freedom to do what they want to do. And then all the multitasking falls apart. You can't actually bring up 2D windows inside full space apps. So it's worse than Horizon OS in that way. Really very curious to see what Google pulls off here. They have some interesting ideas with their frameworks that we've seen. But as we keep saying in this show, it's all well and good to promise. Let's see what they ship in the Samsung headset for real into consumers' homes.
So I'm not sure if this is what DIY Movies out there is saying, but I'm going to guess because they're saying the future is widgets. And I don't know if they're referring to what we were talking about earlier, but I'm guessing they're referring to the idea that all of these ideas, augments, what David just explained very clearly with the shared space and how the volumes work next to each other, it all feels like widgets to us mentally. We all have been trained over the last whatever of operating systems that like a widget is a one task thing that sits in a corner and isn't necessarily the most performant or interactive thing, but it's always there and ready to give you updated information. And we have a certain model in our head for like how widgets are supposed to be. They're like wallpaper. They're things you interact with once every couple of days, maybe once every couple hours. You don't touch the widgets. That's not the right model for what these volumes are. And it's not the right model for how long it's taking both Apple and developers to stack up all the things you can do inside of these volumes floating in front of you, right? Like there will come a time there should come a time when each of these volumes are actually really robust, complex objects that you could do a lot of things with. At least that's my hope. But the devs, like, you look at that project graveyard and think this is the silliest, most basic idea imaginable. But you got to look through that and see, oh, actually, these are building blocks for much bigger things that are just going to take another year or so to make.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Developers are still kind of learning how to work with this new paradigm. Apple is still building out the tools. It's still very early. A lot of people ask questions like, why did Apple ship Vision Pro while it's still a $3,500, 600-gram thing? And I think a lot of the answer to that is that you actually do need years and years for developers to build on this. It's not just a new sized iPhone. It's a fundamentally different development paradigm. It's not even just a high-end Quest. Vision OS does some things truly fundamentally different, not completely new. We have to, again, give that credit to Magic Leap and Microsoft. Again, some of the same people moved over, but it's new in terms of shipping to hundreds of thousands of consumers. Those were, I think Magic Leap sold like 10,000 units in the first year. Microsoft HoloLens was primarily enterprise. So it's a very different perspective here.
I love Jack's comment out there. He's got me thinking about that. Maybe they should be referred to as appliances instead of widgets. Interesting terminology there to think about. I'm going to say I need a usable output from an appliance. I need to put something into an appliance and let it do something for me and get a usable output, and then I'll call it an appliance. So if like that object does something for me while it's sitting over there, maybe I could call it an appliance. But also, part of me wants it to spit that object out in the real world. Like, yeah, my printer's an appliance. I'll accept that. But I don't know about any digital objects that are an appliance yet.
Yeah, there's some really interesting ideas of how you can merge these things together, right? You can imagine, going into your kitchen and looking at the cooker and having some delivery app bring you the ingredients needed to cook something out, and you seeing like a 3D kind of silhouette of where these things are going to go. There are all kinds of interactions you can imagine in real life. You can imagine smart home stuff. You've explored some of that with HomeRise and Apple Vision Pro, of you're physically interacting. You have a virtual switch, you have something to open your garage, all these kind of possibilities.
Here's my dream. All right, I imagine. Yeah, David's right. You've gotten through the thing and you're out of sugar, right? And you go, oh, I need sugar. But you're in headset, right? You place the order for sugar from your local drone delivery company, and then you see what looks like a dragon or something flying through the air, coming near your window. You reach over to your window, you pop open the window to your kitchen. You reach your hand out, and the dragon flies down with a little clutch in its hand of a little itty bitty baggie of sugar. And then you just put your hand out there, and the drone plops a drone, but it's stylized as a dragon, just plops the sugar right down into your hand. You reach your hand back inside, you close down the window. We have how we get meals, just like they did in The Fifth Element, but actually in the real world.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting ideas of where this can go, and we're very excited to see what developers build as their tools get better, as the hardware gets better. We love at UploadVR seeing the creative and interesting things that developers build with this technology. Let's move on to our next section. So this one won't be too long, I don't think. We just want to point these out because they're very cool. These are Vision OS media watching environments. So we'll start with Disney Plus and then talk about HBO Max. So I've been watching Alien Earth on Disney Plus and really enjoying it so far. The episode 3 just came out. And what they have shipped in Disney Plus now is an Alien Earth environment. So let's see what I can say without spoiling anything. You're inside the containment room on the USC SS Maginot. I'm not going to say anything too much, but I would just say that this is a very high fidelity environment. It feels and looks great to be in. It's not photorealistic, but it's very high quality. It doesn't look like some mobile VR thing. It does feel like PC VR much more than mobile VR, which is an interesting trend on Apple Vision Pro. The lighting is great on those 4K micro OLED displays. This works the darkness here in a way that it would not work on an LCD headset like Quest 3. And of course, you can watch anything from Disney Plus, including Alien Earth, in this environment and have the environment, the display cast light onto the environment, have shadows, all of the lighting here, the sounds. It's great. Of course, you can watch anything, but I think Alien Earth and the Alien movies is ideally what you would want to watch in this. And so this is the 6th environment inside Disney Plus. There are system level environments in Apple Vision Pro. There are also app level environments. These are app level, so they're only within Disney Plus. The 4 that it launched with Disney Plus were the Disney Plus Theater, which is inspired by the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, Tatooine, where you sit in the cockpit of Luke Skywalker's land speeder, Avengers Tower, where you're at the top of Tony Stark's skyscraper overlooking Manhattan. That one's really impressive, the Avengers Tower. It's really, really impressive. And then the scare floor from Pixar's Monsters, Inc. Last year, they also introduced an Iceland environment, which is based on a national park in Iceland, which is a really beautiful environment too. And now, of course, you get this one. So I have been watching Alien Earth inside this. I think it's a markedly better, more immersive experience than watching it on a regular TV. I'm really liking the show so far. On a side note, it's too early to tell. It's only episode 3, but I'm really enjoying it so far as a huge Blade Runner and Alien fan.
Oh man, I love that our comments are actually going bonkers for this. We're actually our view count is going up as we talk about Alien, and like everyone is going off on it, and the opinions are all over the board. And luckily, I am caught up on it, so I have watched it all. And the funny thing is, like that's the takeaway. Like they're all broken up about it, and they're all fighting with each other about whether it's the right. As an Alien fan since the 1970s, this is not my Alien. At the same time, you watched all the episodes, didn't you? You're kind of invested a little bit, aren't you? Right? Like it's weird to have an Alien TV show after all these years and actually go, oh, that's what an Alien TV show feels like.
Yeah, I respect anyone who's not enjoying it, but I'm personally enjoying it, and I really like the kind of Peter Pan mythos. It's basically a retelling of Peter Pan. I don't think that spoils too much to say that.
Well, I think we could we spoil? I think we could spoil the opening scroll, the setup for the entire show, right?
Yeah,
The setup for the show is that there's different paths towards immortality, and the show is going to explore those paths. And they're already off to a good start, right? But that's the very David was referring to Blade Runner, the opening of the series, of the whole opening of the show. Very first thing you see is exactly what I'm describing, and give it time. I think, right? It's really tugging at my brain in weird ways. And yeah, I haven't watched it in VR though. And I'm James. Are we gonna get it? Are we gonna get together and watch one of these episodes together? Like, put it on my calendar.
I really wonder what the deal here is between Disney and Apple. Obviously, we have not seen the Disney Plus app come to Quest. You can watch Disney Plus in the web browser of Quest, but that's not the same thing of having a real app with downloads and environments. Is this a forever exclusive? I doubt it. I can't see Disney making a deal like that. But how many years of exclusivity is there here? Is Apple paying for this? Is this all Disney? We don't know those deals. We'd love to. And I think a lot of Quest owners really want this. But again, I don't think this environment would work on an LCD panel. It really just wouldn't. You need OLED for this to work. It's so dark and has so many little, lights that are kind of standing out. You can't do this on an LCD. It would be a crime.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to. There's a lot of. I'll put this question. I guess I'll put a question out to our audience too. Do you wear a sleep mask? I'd love to hear. If you're a VR user, I assume if you watch this show, I'd be curious to see if a VR mask, a sleep mask over your eyes while you sleep is something in your practice. And yeah, OLED matters so much to me, right? It makes such a huge difference. We should probably. I'll just move on to talking about the Hogwarts one, right?
Sure. Let's just tell people what this is. Yeah. So separately, the HBO Max app on Apple Vision Pro has added a Hogwarts Great Hall environment that Ian has been trying, and they already have a Game of Thrones Iron Throne environment, if I'm correct. And then this is the second major branded one that has arrived now. They've got Game of Thrones, and now they have Harry Potter. So you can watch all the Harry Potter movies and the upcoming show, I would assume, in this Hogwarts environment that has a day version and a night version. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to mention. There is a night mode. Well, the night mode activates as soon as you click into a movie. So you're just looking at the menu and you hear the kids outside going to their classes, and then you go and click on a movie, and boom, the tables sort of fade away. It becomes your. And here's the awkward thing about it: it's like you're laying on the floor of Hogwarts, and that's where it's the night when they all camped out in the books, I guess, and all it had to hide in this. It's sort of got that feeling of being on the floor there, and it's the right spot for it's like a drive-in movie inside of the Hogwarts Great Hall. So it's a very interesting thing to have that. And yes, there's day and night mode when it switches off, but I'm actually gonna say something like these environments are cool, but the Apple environments are so much better that I don't necessarily want to watch movies in anything but the moon or those really well-made environments.
Well, the Disney ones are good. I want to point out that. So I don't
like moving around. Have you done a lot of moving around in those? And I haven't done.
No, I haven't. No, the Disney ones are just as good as Apple's, maybe with the exception of the Monsters Inc. Scare Floor. But the other ones are really high quality. The Avengers Tower is incredible. It's like actually breathtaking to be able to stand up there and kind of look over New York and see all these kind of items from the Marvel universe beside you. But I am in the UK where we don't have HBO Max, so I haven't tried HBO's, and it does sound like I hear the commenters as well echoing what you're saying. Michael Grant is saying that they weren't impressed with the Game of Thrones environment. So are you saying that compared to Apple and Disney, the HBO environments just aren't as good?
Yeah, I'm not feeling it, right? Yeah, and I typically, let me think about this. I th- I don't I don't think I've used the Disney environments very much either. I just typically watch my movies in the Apple environments, or because of the multitasking is great there. I don't think I can multitask in these, can I?
I don't think you can. No, these are specifically for these apps. Typically, I would just, my use case here is I'm on a plane. The reason I've used Disney Plus a lot is because it is one of the two major streaming services in the UK that has a native Vision OS app and has downloads. There's Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus. So when I'm traveling over to try, Boba 3 and tiramisu on that 9 or 10 hour flight to Canada, I am in the Disney Plus environments watching these movies. And yeah, they're really high quality. I like the Disney Plus theater. I like the Iceland one, and I like the Alien one now.
So the reason I asked that question about the sleep masks, before we move on here, is I wanted to just talk this out with David, right? And with our audience. David, I go to bed and I'm trying to go to sleep, and some people are listen to our podcast to try to go to sleep, but I'm laying there, I close my eyes, and even with most of the lights off in my home or even in my room, I can see through my eyelids a little bit of gray and a little bit of light. I found that if I get a sleep mask and put it over my eyes, I basically get OLED darkness for my sleep. I do not get OLED darkness for my sleep unless I wear a sleep mask over the front of my eyelids. Is that crazy? Does this make sense?
I think that's a very interesting analogy, actually. Yeah, this idea of never kind of seeing true darkness. There are so many environments in real life where you're not getting true black. You live in New York City, so I'm assuming it's quite difficult. I remember that when I was at CES in Vegas, I found it really difficult to sleep because obviously these buildings are all covered in lights, and I hadn't experienced that before. Um, at the time, I was living quite rural, so I was not used to that at all. And it's an interesting analogy for sure. Yeah, I think to kind of muse on this wider, there is something very important lost in the move to LCD. I understand why. It's great that VR is affordable now, that you don't have to spend $1,000 or more to get in. It's great that we can have $300 and $500 headsets, but there is something deeply lost by a headset not being able to display the color black, to only be able to show a murky gray approximation. And in environments like the Disney Plus one I tried, and I'm assuming this one as well, it matters. It really, really matters.
Yep. Thanks for that discussion. And if these are weird thoughts, I don't know if any other podcasts have thoughts like this. It's a good time to remind you to become a patron or member. Come support us at uploadvr.com. We are a small team trying to cover a space that is growing larger every single day. So that is extremely difficult. We ready to talk about the Vivo Vision now, David?
Yeah, let's talk about this one. And I'm going to have to go on a little bit of a rant and try not to be too unhinged on this one. So we often, we don't often toot our own horns too much, but I think when it comes to the coverage of Vivo Vision, you can clearly see why you should be getting your VR, MR, AR news from UploadVR.com and not other places. Because the reporting of this I saw elsewhere, and there may be better reporting now that I'm on stream. I'm just saying before I started this stream, was truly woeful. So, firstly, almost every report I saw on this had mistranslated Vivo's announcement that you could now book a store demo as booking pre-orders. That's thing number one. So I want to be clear. This Vivo Vision, we'll get into the details soon, but it is not yet a product. It is not open for pre-orders. It is an in-store demo in 12 Chinese stores. They have opened bookings for demos, not for purchase. One of the other crazy things I saw was that people were claiming that it had 180 degrees field of view. Now, all of our regular readers and viewers will know how crazy it is to think that a headset like this would have that, given that we talked about Boba 3 and the trade-offs that I think are worth it to get 180 degrees and what that requires and the kind of tech to get there. And there were other kind of more minor issues with how people were reporting this. The price, for example, people were reporting it as if it was a solid price when in reality it was a statement given by executives for an estimate. So I really think that we at UploadVR strike the right balance between getting something out at a decent speed where we're not reporting days late, while also making sure that we don't rush out with false info. Another huge issue here I've just remembered was that so many people reported it as an 8K per eye. This is a thing that a lot of these Chinese companies do. Play for Dream tries to do it too, where they talk about it being 8K. It's not. It's two 4K micro OLED displays. So let's talk about what this really is. What is this, if you haven't heard? Vivo is a Chinese smartphone company. You can find them, in stores in Europe. You probably can't in America. They have roughly 10% market share. Earlier this year, they announced Vivo Vision. As you can see on screen, it is clearly heavily inspired by the design of Apple Vision Pro, and this is something that is quite normal in Chinese tech. I've talked often on this show how you can walk into most electronic stores in Europe and go up to try the Chinese phones, and they're all playing a game of who can copy iOS the most, who can look the most like the latest iPhone on a hardware and software level. You can see that playing out now in VR as well if you look at this design. But it is quite a different device than Apple Vision Pro in some key ways. So it weighs, according to Vivo, 398 grams, which is 40% lighter than Vision Pro and 23% lighter than Quest 3. It's also a more compact design that's less tall. Like Apple Vision Pro, it is primarily controlled with the gaze and pinch paradigm, where you use eye tracking and hand tracking to look with your eyes and select with your fingers by pinching. But for gaming, it also does seem to include traditional touch-like VR controllers that look like your standard clone of Quest 2's controllers that almost every VR company has done now. On a software level, it runs Origin OS Vision, which is Vivo's own fork of Android, just like Meta has its own fork and Pico has its own fork and HTC. Vivo has their own port, just like Play for Dream has their own fork of Android. And what is it powered by? It's powered by the same Snapdragon XR2 Plus Gen 2 chipset that's used in Play for Dream, that's used in Sony's Enterprise headset, and that will be used in Samsung's upcoming Android XR headset. So it's a little bit more powerful than Quest 3. It's that high-end, higher clocks, slightly more features chipset version compared to the one that's in Quest 3. But fundamentally, on the grand scheme of things, it's very similar performance. Like Vision Pro, it also uses a tethered battery pack. You won't see that in this image, but I will bring up the image that we have of the thing in real life to show you that battery pack here. And it's obviously, as we talked about before on last week's show, very similar to the design of Apple Vision Pro's battery pack. On the display side, it has dual 4K micro OLED displays with a color gamut of 94% DCI-P3, which is slightly better than Vision Pro, but slightly worse than Sony's Enterprise headset. They're also taking a similar approach to Apple when it comes to the multiple light seal options. So they do the same thing at their store of scan your face and pick from 4 light seal options and 8 foam padding options. Now, I want to be clear, this is not actually a product yet. It's called Vivo Vision Discovery Edition. It's a bookable demo in 12 Chinese stores. Apple has been selling Vision Pro in China for quite a while now and demoing in stores as well. So this isn't the first time you can go and demo a headset with 4K micro OLED in China. You can walk into the Apple store next door and do the same thing. What about when does it ship? So Vivo executives told Chinese media outlets, they gave the same statement to multiple of them, that it could come down to around 10,000 yuan, which is equivalent to roughly 1,400 US dollars. Apple Vision Pro is currently sold in China for 30,000, which is the equivalent of, about 4,500 US dollars. So based on that, could come down to, quote from Vivo's executives, if that is the case, if they do manage to hit that price, it would be a third of the price of Apple Vision Pro. We expect that this will probably ship in 2026. So fundamentally, this is a very similar headset to Play for Dream. It uses the same chipset is Play for Dream, roughly the same displays, and runs its own fork of Android. The difference is that instead of having a battery in the rear, they have this Apple Vision Pro like soft strap, so it's more optimized for these kind of use cases of media watching, like we've been talking about, watching on a giant screen. In China, it's a lot easier to get their streaming services to play along with this kind of thing than it is in the West. The one difference I do hear from talking to someone who has tried this compared to Play for Dream is apparently this thing does have better eye tracking. So the gaze and pinch system works better, and that their hardware focus here has been on that. But there has been so much missing reporting about this. It is not 8K per eye. It does not have 180 degrees field of view. It's essentially just a Android equivalent to Apple Vision Pro that is using a weaker chip. And we should point out that Apple is expected to launch an M5 Vision Pro. This M2 is already more powerful than the XR2 Plus Gen 2, so Apple's headset will be several times more powerful than this. But it's interesting to see that the Chinese market have a response here to Apple Vision Pro regardless.
Oh, goodness. I'm seeing a lot of discussion about different types of models out there for glasses, and I don't know if that's a discussion we want to get into right now, even though we're going to spend the last section of this talking about the smart glasses. So I'm ready to move on to this as soon as you're ready. So, because I think we're going to end up having to talk about how all of our VR headsets are so different from the next section of stuff we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of people echo the blatant copying here. Craig Melville echoing that he hates the 8K advertising. I hate that too. And I want to say it's not only the Chinese companies, okay? Sony and Meta both call their headsets 4K because they're 2K per eye. And it's so dumb. I'm sorry, but no. 2K per eye is not 4K. Why do I say that? If you're in your headset right now, or when you're in your headset later, close one eye. Does the resolution half? Does the resolution of the world suddenly half if you close one eye? No, it doesn't. Like, the two displays in VR give you binocular vision. They don't make the thing higher resolution. If you have one eye, right? If you have lost your vision in one eye, or for whatever reason, you don't have half the resolution in VR. You see, the angular resolution you see is based on the amount that one panel has. It gets more complicated when you have two panels. You have to take a subset when you have one panel, it's more complicated. You have to take a subset out of that one panel. It's still not that, okay? Quest 2 is 2K per eye. Quest 3 is 2K per eye. PlayStation VR 2 is 2K per eye. Apple Vision Pro is 3.6K per eye. We can round up to 4K. That's fine. This headset is 4K per eye. There is nobody out there making higher resolution than 4K per eye at scale. So Play for Dream, you're not 8K. Vivo, you're not 8K. You're 4K per eye. That's fine. It's fine. 4K per eye is great. It's excellent. If you try an Apple Vision Pro, if you try a Play for Dream, you're going to go, wow, this is amazing. Nobody is, of course, as we talked about last week, we can go much, much further, right? We can get into, retinal resolution. But I think when you try a 4K per eye headset, you're not going to be like, oh God, this sucks. It's fine. You don't even need to exaggerate. That's what frustrates me so much about this. It's great already. You don't need to exaggerate. And on the 4K per eye micro OLED thing, UploadVR's Don Hopper now uses a very heavily modified Play for Dream as his PC VR daily driver. Why? Because even though it has ergonomic flaws and other flaws, the 4K per eye micro OLED displays are so great to have that he's willing to sacrifice everything. So, I've said this before, it is, if the VR industry could ask a genie for one wish, just what it would be to make 4K micro OLED displays mass market available price. If you could reduce by a factor of 10 the price of 4K micro OLED displays, and in turn multiply by 10 the production output, that one thing would change the VR industry. It has to be a practical thing. Obviously, you could ask for something else. I mean, a practical thing, that one thing.
That's a really, really interesting statement. Do you remember Mark Zuckerberg saying he thinks that the Quest 3 is the better product, period? right? It was a very strong thing that got a lot of tech bros to go, hurrah, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we're looking at the quarterly numbers, a couple quarters, couple years out from that to really see how things land. Um, that you just he said two things, as I recall. He said that I think it's the better product, period.
It,
He also said that Apple paid for the display, right? They paid for that one component.
in fairness, he did say, the resolution of the display is nice. He did say that that is the one thing it has going for it, in his opinion. But he complained about other things, like the motion blur that's on the display. I do think, to give him credit, he did accept that. You'd have to be crazy to think that it doesn't matter to go from a 2K LCD to a 4K micro OLED. You'd have to be crazy.
Which would be the better way to spend money? $100 billion over the course of 10 years, releasing a new product every year to two while killing off the old products, or watching what everyone else does for 10 years and then releasing one product while investing $90 billion into the hardware component supply to ensure you can bring down the micro OLED production cost.
In fairness to Meta, they're doing both, right? Meta has been talking with these display companies for a long time. It's not as easy as throwing money at it. A lot of these companies are trying their damnedest to figure out how the hell do you manufacture these things at scale. It's really effing hard. Their yields have been awful historically. Recently, there have been some breakthroughs, but it's still doing this ultra high density OLED on silicon. It's going to take probably a manufacturing breakthrough. And, this comes back to something that I read recently, an article I read recently, where in all of our mythos of the technology industry and our media and our movies and our ideas of history, we overvalue initial inventions too much. Everyone is really interested in what's the new breakthrough, what's the new invention, but we undervalue manufacturing. And it arguably matters more. How do you make a thing affordable to mass produce versus how do you invent it in the first place, right? You can get into politics here and talking about how, the United States invented solar panels, China figured out how to make them mass produced and affordable at scale. This all factors in as well. And there are Chinese companies like BOE and SIA trying hard to do this. It's going to take not a new idea of a new thing breakthrough. It's going to take a manufacturing breakthrough of how do we make the machine that makes the machine, right? The machine that makes the thing is going to be difficult. But there's a big opportunity here. Samsung Display is working on it. LG Display is working on it. BOE is working on it. JDI is working on it. Everyone's trying. Everyone would love to. But it's not as easy as just throwing money at it. It is really effing hard to make 4K micro OLED displays.
You say it, right? And what's fascinating there, right, David? You pointed out that the VR market needs one component in much higher supply at much lower costs. One component. That's different than the AR glasses needing 4 or 5 components all to work together and come down in price and go up in capability.
They need a new material.
Right, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that you're absolutely right what you're saying. The AR glasses are you need to figure out how do you even start? The VR problem is how do you scale up micro OLED? The AR problem is how do you even start a mass-produced supply chain of silicon carbide, right? So you're absolutely right to point out that.
What I want? Do you remember the statement that I'm referring to, where he did compliment the resolution, but I thought there was a statement that Zuckerberg indicated, he almost indicated money was spent towards that resolution. It almost seemed to refer to some kind of an investment in that supply chain.
I think he was more just referring to the cost they pay per each, right? So we have to put this in context for our readers that haven't, our listeners, that haven't heard this before. The displays in Apple Vision Pro cost more than your entire Quest 3. By most estimates, it may have come down now, but at launch, you're talking $700 for those two displays, right? $350 each. And that's just the cost Apple pays. They obviously have to add in a margin. That's crazy, right? That's what we're talking about. We keep saying these micro OLED displays, these 4K, they're amazing, right? But there's a reason Apple Vision Pro is $3,500 and Play for Dream is $2,000. And, this might be $1,400. Maybe. I doubt it, to be honest. I think that's probably just hopeful, wishful thinking. There's a reason that we haven't seen any 4K micro OLED headset that's less than 2,000-ish dollars, right? Like, ish. We've
Yeah,
seen 1,800-ish. You haven't seen anything below that. And it's because these things cost more. These single components together cost more than your entire Quest.
but it's remarkable. I think it was what Tim Cook said. There was just enough sales from the Vision Pro to keep focusing on this, right? It's the clear indication, right? That the thing that was wrong with The Verge that David and I have referred to multiple times is they sort of indicated, what if this is the dead end? What if Apple kills this whole thing right after that? And we have to repeat, this is them just building up, right? And so if you think about the Apple Vision Pro as a win, if you threw away your bias, right? You forget that bias about what camp you are in, what phone you use, right? If you say, okay, the Apple Vision Pro was a win, what does that mean for every headset Apple makes from here if they won just in their first outing after Meta struggled after 6 or 7 outings, right? Rift, Rift S, you count up all those things. That's a lot of attempts at whiffing, right? What if enough was done right here from the first Apple product that they're like, okay, next Apple product is just a slim lighter, just a slim cheaper, right? It wins just a little bit bigger than the first one won. That's a big if. I'm not saying it won. I want you to maybe question yourselves if you're in the camp of it's definitely a failure.
It's definitely not a failure. But the one pushback I'd have is that there's no past tense here. This is the early days. We're at this beginning of we're in the middle of the beginning is all I would say. We're not even in I don't know the baseball terms, unfortunately, but this thing has barely started is all I will say.
Here's my, I think Meta is in, let's say it's a tie game between Apple and Meta right now, but Meta is in extra innings regarding their investments.
You're going to have to translate the baseball terms.
It was a terrible, and I totally butchered the game of baseball there. So don't, let's move on to the next thing.
If I'm in New York, you'll have to teach me what baseball is.
Oh yeah, I would love to. Well, I don't want to see a cornhole game. So I mean, I don't think there's a cornhole match somewhere in New York. So we're not going to go see that.
Baseball it is. Okay. Right. Let's go on to our final section then of the show. Rarely do we have smart glasses news at the end of our show, but this time we will. So we're going to talk about 3 topics. The last 2 are heavily related. They're basically the same thing. The first is the Oakley Meta hoisting glasses shipping next week. And then the next 2 topics are about Meta's HUD glasses with the EMG wristband, the price, and the monocular display. So let's just get straight into talking about those Oakley Meta hoisting glasses. So these are essentially...
There's a big comment I want to respond to here.
Sure. Before we get in there, you go.
I'm so sorry.
Go for it, no problem.
Craig Melville, their premise is that AVP is a stepping stone to AR glasses, and those are 2 different platforms. No, the reporting, as I recall, there was one statement that was attributed to someone inside of Apple, so you can't build a lot on this, but it was some statement that indicated that the technology they're putting in AVP, the Apple Vision Pro, will help them get to AR. Now, that you can still use the technology inside of the headset, inside of the phone. If you apply some of the things that they're doing inside of AVP to the iPhone, I think you could have some really magical things like perhaps a transparent screen. What if you look down at your phone and you could look straight through the glass at your hand on the other side, or you're not holding it, you're looking through the apps. Anyways, I think that's a very big idea that has a lot of legs, and you can use the technology in Apple Vision Pro to power that technology in the iPhone. I think you're reading too much into a couple statements out there is all I'll say.
I think this commenter has summoned the chart. So we strongly believe that Apple Vision Pro is not just a stepping stone to AR glasses, and that we believe that the Vision headsets will continue to be their own product line and Vision OS its own OS, even as glasses emerge. And you will have at Apple and Meta and Google, you will have these two separate product lines that some of the core tech is related when it comes to things like tracking and hand tracking and especially all of that computer vision and machine perception. But when it comes to these products and how they're offered, these are fundamentally different things. And one example of that is how much Apple is investing in Apple Immersive Video. If Apple Vision Pro was only just a stepping stone to AR glasses, you wouldn't be investing in immersive video because it doesn't make sense to show immersive video in AR glasses. The kind of spatial screens thing you can kind of argue may be a stepping stone there, but you're not going to put on your AR glasses and go to the Metallica concert or to a live sports game. That doesn't make sense. The field of view wouldn't be good enough to make it compelling. You would have to add a weird side blockers to make it still immersive. You can't do full opacity on display systems for AR glasses that fit inside this kind of form factor we want. These are fundamentally different devices. And I really want to echo this over and over again because we do say it on this show, but it's so important to understand this XR future, to understand that these are different things, that this is the one you'll wear in your home, and this is the one that you'll wear walking about the city or on the bus or the subway. These are different things. This is the desktop PC, and this is your phone. This is the PC, and this is the phone. It's really important to understand that. And people have even misunderstood Vision OS and thinking we'll have Vision Air will be glasses. No, Vision Air will be a lighter and sleeker headset. The Apple glasses will be a separate thing. There will be frameworks that are shared between them, but I would bet strongly that you will have actually a new glasses OS that is in many ways compatible with Vision OS, and you can do things like bring over these 2D apps and volumes, but not the full space apps, not the immersive video. These things will stay within Vision and be a separate offering.
Apple's the type of company to look at a space and go, actually, the people are so put off by having cameras out 24/7. We're going to build mechanical shades. We're going to architect an entire team that's going to build an entire feature that, a little iris that closes over your lenses, and everyone sees the iris close every time you use it. They're not going to enter the product category until they've engineered that feature that they decide is absolutely necessary. The Apple Vision Pro is covered in a bunch of those features, right? The external display is the most obvious one, the eyesight. The thing that we always come back to with this chart, the reason we bring it up all the time, and people who aren't familiar with this chart, okay, let me walk you through why we reference this chart. This is Michael Abrash, the head of research at Meta. He was hired from Valve a decade ago, right during the push when Mark Zuckerberg made it clear, I'm putting tens and tens of billions of dollars down on the bet of VR, brought him over and a bunch of others to really put their money where their mouth is on the future of VR. So he gets to do a whole lot of research, hire a whole lot of team members who get together and try to chart out what is the size, weight, shape of all these future devices. The thing about it is that this is Meta, right? This is the head researcher, Meta. All of this research is done from an assumption that Meta needs a hardware ecosystem to control from top to bottom in the same way that Apple controls the iPhone, right? Meta needs this. Meta needs a platform to control. That's what all this research is spent on. And when they go and look at all of the pros and cons, all the things holding back all this stuff, we arrive at these two different use cases. And we only have this chart as this is the philosophy of Meta. This is Mark Zuckerberg's philosophy as it's portrayed, because he's paying for this to be researched, right?
Yeah.
So he thinks the future is probably going to be this. And a lot of people in our audience, a lot of the people who are buying into this are always like, I guess Mark Zuckerberg's the smartest person in the room. Maybe he's right. I mean, he's spent all these billions of dollars on all of this.
Hold on. I want to point out Mark Zuckerberg is not the person who came up with this idea that there will be two devices, nor is Michael Abrash. This has been an idea in the industry before that. It's the view is not unique to Meta either. It's held by Apple as well. I can tell you from talking to some people. This is held within Apple and within Google. These are
Apple thinks there will be those.
The AR glasses, yes, absolutely. Apple's working on AR glasses. It's working on AR glasses just as it's working on vision headsets. We've seen reports from Mark Gurman that Apple is planning to get them out by the end of the decade. It's Tim Cook's biggest hardware priority is to get AR glasses out by the end of the decade.
And yeah, whether you're referring to display architecture differences or whether you're referring to the same architecture we already have now.
No, I mean transparent waveguide AR glasses.
No, I know. It's what I'm saying is what I'm trying to illuminate for our audience here is all of Meta's decisions are toward visionary goals set by Mark Zuckerberg and trying to be executed over the last few years by Andrew Bosworth. And they believe that AR is going to mature somewhat like the iPhone did, somewhat like the smartphone did. They believe the VR platform is going to mature somewhat like the PC did.
Yes, but the only pushback I'm saying is that you keep saying we're having this conversation as a wider thing and you keep starting Meta. It's not just Meta. Apple thinks the same thing. Google thinks the same thing. Valve thought the same thing.
No,
this is a very old idea.
The thing we have pointed out again and again, the thing we're almost unique about in this market is what happens when we get to Gen 4 of this. Is that so good that this is no longer necessary? And we think that there's an open question about whether, I'm maybe not.
You think, but I think there's still going to be. That's what is so interesting about this chart. You ignore the display systems. Let's pretend that these both use pass-through or these both use waveguides. That still doesn't change the fact that when you're designing something that can be a kind of goggles, ski goggles, visor form factor versus something that has to look like a pair of glasses and walk down the street with and be able to get on the bus and drive your car wearing. These are different design constraints. Even if you ignore the display system, look at this here. Socially acceptable, weigh 70 grams, dissipate 50 milliwatts. When you don't have this design constraint, you have more power. It's the same thing when it comes to a PC and a laptop. It's about the form factor, not the display system. It's about what are the different form factors. And it turns out that when it comes to something that you're putting on your eyes, how you design that hardware, there is going to be different optimizations for what you can do. When you're in your home and you don't need to be able to walk around in the street, the design constraints are different than when you do have to walk around in the street.
Hey, Derek, I appreciate that comment on whether I'm referring to we and he. David pointed out I'm the one that brings this up. And the thing is, I don't believe we're only going to have these. I think it's likely. I'm betting on this crushing the other, even though I'm totally open to it.
I think what we both agree on, let's be clear, is what we agree on is that a lot of people in the wider market underestimate how good the pass-through is going to get on these. But I think the only disagreement we have is I think that matters for the home. I think a lot of people in the industry assume we will get these and this will be the only mixed reality people need. And so you'll sit in your bedroom or your living room and just wear these and not get this. The disagreement that I would have is that I think you're going to, as I keep saying, go out in the real world and wear these, and then you're going to come home and put it back on the dock or in the case and go and pick up this because it's going to be a richer, more immersive experience. And this pass-through is one thing I think we both agree on, this is going to get really, really good before this gets acceptable, before this gets good enough. So we're going to be in a world where people are wearing these light, slim, pass-through headsets before we're in a world where people are wearing this. The disagreement I think we have is I think there would still fundamentally need to be both. I think these are that you will not walk down the street with this. I can't see a world where that happens, maybe in decades and decades when society fundamentally changes. I think you're going to walk down the street with this, not this.
Let me see if I can arrive at a statement we both agree, okay? Because you've corrected it. Do you agree that most people overestimate what this is going to do and underestimate what this is going to do?
Only if you add the caveat in the short term. In the next 5 to 10 years, people underestimate what this will do and overestimate what this will do. But if you go further out and in terms of longer time horizon, eventually both are going to get really, really good. And this, by the late 2030s, people are going to be wearing these outdoors en masse.
So, all right. So David and I are mostly in agreement. And so now I'll talk about what I uniquely believe then. All right. Give us about 5 to 10 years, and these start eating everything that was out imagined over there. But
are you going to wear this
then
on the subway?
those get birthed, right?
Are you going to wear this on the subway?
I think I might only wear I would wear this seated anywhere.
Would you walk down the street with it?
Why? Why am I walking down the street with it?
Because you need to go to the doctor or the restaurant or the vet.
I have a watch.
Okay, so you don't. Okay, so that's the thing. I think that this will still be valuable. Your idea is that you either want to use this seated or this not at all. I think it's going to be incredibly valuable to have this while walking. That's what I'm saying, while you're going around your daily life. Because instead of having to look down at your tiny little watch display that can't even display a full message, you're going to see that pop up over here as you walk along, and you either can do a quick hand gesture to flick that away and never see it again, or you can do a hand gesture to pop it up and read that message as you're walking along, that full email, without ever having to stop or look down. That's what I'm saying. And you won't want to do that while you're not going to want to walk down the street with this thing on.
Yeah, makes sense. No, I do get that. I'm just so used to the fact that VR plants me in one place, reducing the amount of times I'm walking down, or, we talked about using the car, right? Like, one day cars drive themselves, and why do you need to have augmentation? Why wouldn't you just you want to go to another place there, actually?
Look, I think there's one thing we strongly agree on, which is that if you're sitting down, this is what you would use, right? When this gets sleek and light enough, I strongly believe that people will use these on planes, on trains, in cafes, all of these kind of things. I could completely agree with you. I think our only point of disagreement is that I think when you're finished doing your work in that cafe, right? You've finished, your coffee and your muffin or whatever you're eating. You're going to put this in your backpack, and you're going to put these on out of your pocket and walk down the street. That's my disagreement. I think these are in the same way that today, everything I just said would be your laptop and your phone, right? You finish your work on your laptop in Starbucks, you put your laptop back in your backpack, and you walk down the street. In the same way that I don't think you would sling your laptop onto you and kind of keep walking around the street like this. I don't think you're going to take this thing. I think you're going to put these on just like you would carry your phone.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Abrash told me 3 years ago or whatever, right? You were just repeating exactly back at me what he said.
People have been saying for decades is what I'm saying. It's not unique to Meta. All of the people inside these companies believe this. We've been saying it before Abrash said it. I want to point out, you can go and see us. You can go back to our Slack archives and see both of us talking about it before this chart even existed, before Oculus Connect 5. So that's all I just wanted to push back.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Abrash made a brilliant chart that illustrates it really well. This is a brilliant, simple thing to show people, but it wasn't his idea, and it wasn't Meta's.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's. I mean, like, what, David? I've got AWE. We went to this summer, and the head of AWE, you can read the interview on our website, is telling me he thinks that the end model is lasers straight into the retinas, right? And that's a third architecture here that isn't even sci-fi. It's still sci-fi to us at this point in terms of things. And that's Augmented World Expo, the largest gathering of professionals in this space, imagining a architecture for getting light into our eyeballs that has no prospects near term for consumerization. And like, it's just madness to me. I don't know how many devices people own in the future, right? Imagine this idea like that you have two phones, a light phone and a heavy phone. Doesn't make sense to me.
But it's a laptop and a phone is what you have. These are completely different things. You don't have a light phone and a heavy phone, but you do have a phone and a laptop. You go to these events with me, and you have a laptop in your bag, and I have a laptop in my bag, and I have my phone in my hand. And when I'm walking around the show floor, I have my phone, and when I go and sit down in our press area, I take my laptop out.
I get it, but isn't the reason we have these different product categories because cellular is the unique feature? Like, it's such a power draw?
You can get, no, it's not. You can get cellular on Windows laptops. Apple could do it any day they wanted. You can get cellular iPad Pros. Apple could put cellular in a MacBook tomorrow. Why would it be more of a power draw for a laptop than a phone? That's not the reason.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's move on to the next subject here. We've had this been a really great discussion, though. I think we really illuminated a lot of stuff with this discussion to our audience.
Yeah, but I think they do want.
We tend not to repeat these. We don't bring. We did a couple months before we brought up that chart, right?
I don't know. I don't know if we can give ourselves that credit. I think we may have used it a little bit too much, but I think a lot of our commenters enjoy it. But I do think they do want us to obviously move on and get to our final topics today. So, yeah, let's get into
I'm
that.
going to leave real quick and come back. There's some kind of an audio glitch. I'll be right back.
Sure. I'll cover just the Oakley glasses. So, our first smart glasses topic of today is the Oakley Meta Houston glasses. We're going to talk about the Oakley Meta Houston glasses. Pre-orders have now opened for the regular models, and they are shipping next week. You may kind of be wondering, wait a minute, did this not already happen? Last month, they shipped the limited edition, which is $500, but now they have opened up pre-orders for the regular editions. So for context of what is this product, the Oakley Meta Houston glasses, it's essentially Ray-Ban Meta Pro. It's $100 more expensive than the Ray-Ban Meta, but you get around double the battery life, depending on what you're doing, and it records 3K video instead of just 1080p. In every other way, it is the same device, right? It is screenless smart glasses with really good microphones and speakers so that you can take calls, listen to music, audiobook, podcasts, talk to Meta AI, and Meta AI can see through the cameras what you're seeing, such that it can answer questions about the real world. You can also do things like do a first-person video call, so the person on the other end on WhatsApp or Messenger sees your first-person perspective. And obviously, you can take photos and videos with it. That's just kind of like the baseline functionality. So they are slightly more expensive than the Ray-Ban Meta. This sunglasses version is $400. The black one with clear lenses is $400. The brown one with polarized lenses is $450. The black one with polarized lenses is $450. The black one with purple transitions lenses is $480. So these become dark in outdoor light, and then when you go back indoors, they slowly transition back to transparent. And then the clear with gray transitions is $480. So not much to say about this because it is just pretty much the same thing as Ray-Ban Meta, except Pro. They pre-orders are open now and they ship next week. I don't think there's much else to say about that. I personally don't like the design. I'm not going to get this. I like the battery life. It's great to see them push on battery life. Cool to see the recording quality go up. I just don't think this is for me. Maybe I could go. I mean, if you're at a festival at this, I guess it would be pretty cool. Some people are saying that they think the clear versions look pretty good. I guess if you're into that sort of design, not me personally. If anyone in the comments is getting this or doesn't want to get this, let us know.
Yeah, I feel like these are we've got the next ones to talk about, but I am deeply curious whether they charge differently, because
These ones.
no, the next ones, because I'm tired of the limits of what's doable in sort of this form factor, right? Like, I don't know, they go out pretty fast. Even if you improve the battery life on them, that's still not a lot of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, double is pretty good. I guess that is depending on how exactly does Meta count that. Is it really double? We'll have to see. I don't plan to get this. I do know some people that are getting it, so I'm going to ask them about what they see from battery life perspective there. Does apparently have a noticeably bigger battery. RK is saying that they think they look pretty cool. Eric is saying they're not feeling this design. Yeah, Clayman is asking, does the AI work in the UK? Yeah. They rolled out Meta AI across every supported region now, I think. So you can use all the multimodal AI features in Europe. Apparently, that's because, well, obviously there were regulatory issues, but apparently EssilorLuxottica, the company that Meta has partnered with, that owns Ray-Ban and Oakley, that Meta has now taken a stake in. Apparently those executives were really mad that it didn't work, and they were kind of like, what the F is going on here? Why is this such a gimped product in Europe? And they kind of got a little bit of, fire under Meta's teams to do that. And then also they were able to kind of say to European regulators, we're a huge European company. We're one of the biggest companies in Europe. Are you going to let us compete in the modern tech world? And so there is a massive advantage to the EssilorLuxottica partnership, other than just getting access to these stylish designs that people like. And also the other advantage is that you get those physical stores. The other advantage is you get some leverage with European regulators. And that's something that every tech company wants right now for the European market. Meta has kind of accidentally given themselves a huge regulatory advantage there, because as I've said before, we don't want to get into politics on this show, but I don't think anyone would disagree that regulators are going to be a little bit favoritist to their home turf. There is a lot of that going on when it comes to regulating American companies from Europe. There is a little bit of, success envy there and wanting to kind of take a little bit off that. And once you have your own company, EssilorLuxottica, making money in the consumer tech world, you're going to say, maybe we don't want to regulate this out of existence. We don't want to get Meta or to go partner with some other company outside Europe.
So James saying I'm not wearing any AI device, and unless it was designed from the bottom up with privacy. Good overall sentiment there. I want to go back. The thing on the last subject and this subject that just weighs on me here is what I need are prescription glasses that I slip my VR visor over. And when I take my VR visor off, I'm just got my prescription glasses walking down the street. And that fulfills what you kept coming after me over in the last segment about, right? I just need prescription glasses, walking around, looking at the real world. And then I need VR for whenever I get augmented. And yeah, I could see the benefit everyone has pointed out of the little occasional AR, but it's just, I'm going somewhere to just sit down again and go back and put my visor back on, pop my laptop back out, to your point.
Yeah, look, I want to be clear again. These are not AR glasses. They do not have a display of any kind. When the prescription thing, we're going to have to strongly disagree again. Why not just get prescription lenses? Having to design a headset around glasses is tough, especially as headsets get slimmer and slimmer. Apple Vision Pro just doesn't support glasses, right? At some point, you get so slim that this is not practical. And that's why you buy the prescription lenses, you clip them in, and then you never think about it again, right? Like, you have your prescription lenses attached to your Vision Pro, right?
I do, and what was crazy is I put them off. I pulled them off to show to a friend, family member, and then I didn't get them back on the headset for like 4 days because I kept like misplacing where the lenses were relative to the headset, and like, oh, I have to get these back on. I'd never taken them off again, right? And it was actually a pain there for a week finding these lenses. Just saying, it's a small little. You're right, but ultimately, it's what I, the user, need, and it serves James' requirement of it being privacy secure.
Why does using glasses that are attached to your headset increase privacy?
What I'm saying is I take the privacy, the thing that analyzes my environment off, and now I'm left with plain old regular prescription glasses. That's privacy.
Yeah, but then they're not smart glasses, right? The people want. One thing we can tell quite clearly,
and people want. No, Meta wants.
No, look at Meta's Seals. Ray-Ban Meta glasses have tripled in a year, and Quest Seals are down.
They've attached AI to a smart glasses product line. It was selling fine before that.
No, it wasn't. It's tripled since they've done that. It's tripled in Seals. Like, there's this irony that we're talking about. People want the headsets and not glasses, and we've just come back from Meta's report where the market doesn't. They are not. Quest Seals are down. Ray-Ban Meta Seals have tripled.
Yeah, I mean, again, how many people turn the features off? I know a lot don't, and you get to revel in Meta saying, "This is our thing right now is AI, right?" Everyone, Meta is putting all of its billions, and so all of us all echo it. Oh, that's where it is. They're going to succeed this time,
but they're not.
I just don't buy that assumption.
Sure, but it's not an assumption. People are buying them, and both Meta and
That's not the
EssilorLuxottica.
same as using them
Okay,
and
well, let me
keeping
finish
them
the
and
sentence.
buying the next one.
Both Meta
Like,
and
how many people
EssilorLuxottica have
bought
said that
one
AI
generation of
usage
Quest
is
and then
up.
didn't buy the next one?
They've said that Meta AI usage is up by 4 times versus last year. Both Meta and EssilorLuxottica have said that. So they've said not only are they selling, but people are using it. You're confusing what you want with what the market wants. What the market, they're not throwing this billions because it's fun. They're doing it because they think that people want it. And so far, now the argument you could make is maybe it will reach a maximum soon. Maybe it will peter off. Maybe it's an S curve rather than an exponential. But right now, the evidence that we have from the market is that people are buying these glasses and they're using the AI.
Yeah, that's great. And I think there will be a fall off. That's fine. We're like, I'm not disagreeing. And yeah, it's what I'm pointing out is a potential roadblock 2 to 3 years or 5 years to the entire product line. And throwing money at these problems doesn't necessarily solve them. They solve some problems, but we've just gone through 10 years of Rift to Quest, and it did not solve the problems that the Apple Vision Pro solved.
Yeah, but it also has taken the market from a couple of 100,000 enthusiasts to tens of millions of people. Like, you're talking about the Quest, like, yeah, it's down for sales, but they have more people in VR today than ever before. There are tens of millions of people using VR. It's an entire market now, right? You say this as if nothing happened, as if the market didn't grow. The market's grown by 100x since the Rift days. Like,
it's just all the people. It's just yes, Vision but as soon as they get into a Quest, they immediately try to go elsewhere. Right, they try to get off the Quest ecosystem.
What do you mean by that? Most people don't. Yeah. Like, some people do. Like, I think you're overestimating. Like, you're inflating what a couple of 100,000 enthusiasts do versus what Gorilla Tag has millions of active users. Rec Room has millions of active users on Quest alone. Like, people are using these headsets quite clearly, right? Like, you of course, we're not at hundreds of millions, but it's not like no progress is being made from Rift to Quest. The market's so much bigger. Siegfried Gaming saying they use their Quest every day. Like, I think it's entirely possible that the smart glasses market peters off, but I don't know if I don't see any reason why, right? The opposite's happening. Apple and Google both want in. According to Mark Gurman, Apple is going to release its own direct equivalent to this. No display, just cameras and microphones and audio in 2026 or 2027. They're coming out with the same thing, but with Siri instead of Meta AI. Google has just announced Android.
So there was granted. Okay, so there's a report that both the biggest companies out there are exploring this product category. They've shown us a whole bunch of the components, but they didn't ship, right? That there's still a chance that neither of those companies follow through on some things. They probably will. Everyone has glasses right now, but just because everyone has glasses doesn't mean the market is going to succeed for any of them. Go back to the iPad. iPad gets introduced. Oh, here's the tablet wave. Everyone did tablets for 2 years. It's no magic. Like, they were doing it again now with glasses, right? Doesn't mean it's...
Apple makes billions of dollars off iPads. It's a massive part of its business.
And what's the next best tablet brand behind iPad?
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of that's down to software. You have the Amazon tablets are selling at low cost. Apple has dominated the tablet market. That's the answer to that. It's not that nobody wants a tablet. It's that Apple
I think what I'm getting at there is there tends to be room for one product at the top, and then also RANs, right? Everyone else. What happened with Android was Android gathered up this whole ecosystem by being the operating system for everyone else.
I think tablets are a unique place where Apple has dominated. If you look at TV OSs, if you look at smartwatches, if you look at phones, there's usually 2 or 3 players, right? Like in TVs, you have 3. In phones, you have 2. In computer OSs, you have 2. I don't see any reason why there couldn't be 2 or 3 in this market. It's
so all right. We're going to talk about this next section and the next subject, and I want to talk about the EMG wristband as a lead-in. So you can give the facts here, but I want to talk about what I saw. Do we need to finish off on this subject first?
No. Let's just move on to the next topic. If we're going to move on to the next topic, let's move on to the next topic. So our next topic is about Meta's first glasses that will have a display. Everything we've been talking about so far, the Ray-Ban Meta, the Oakley, no display. But according to a bunch of reports now, Meta plans to, at Connect next month, open pre-orders for Meta Celeste HUD glasses. So this is not AR glasses. We're not talking about being able to position virtual objects in the real world or have interfaces floating and kind of stay positionally tracked. It's not positional tracking, and it's only in one eye. But you would get a small heads-up display in one eye. And that heads-up display, might show you things like the time, the weather, your phone notifications. This is an example mock-up from Meta from years ago. You will be able to bring up the notification in full or dismiss it. You'll be able to preview your photos. You'll be able to see the Meta AI output as text instead of always having to have it yap in your ear. And so the news that comes up this week from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman's bombshell report is that Meta plans to sell this with the EMG wristband for $800. And that's in contrast to Meta's old plans, according to Mark Gurman himself, which was well above $1,000, maybe as high as $1,400. And according to Gurman, part of this is just Meta wanting to have a lower margin and accept not making a big profit on this thing so they can push it out to the market. And presumably the other part of it is that they figured out, some supply chain efficiencies to get this thing down. So the other use case that I'm really, really excited for with HUD glasses in general, not just Meta's, any company that does it, is turn-by-turn navigation. So I really detest when I'm in a new city and trying to find my way around on my phone, having to look down at this thing in my pocket and watch this little blue dot and try to figure out where I am related to that as the GPS scatters about all of these buildings, and then have to kind of, go down and look at my phone instead of being eyes up. I really want a heads-up display, a HUD, that can give me turn-by-turn navigation as well. I think for people who are deaf and have other hearing issues, live translation and just captioning in general will be really useful. Being able to see a caption of all of their real-world speech while having glasses on is going to be very significant for them. And we are talking about something that is bulkier than Ray-Ban Meta. This is a leaked photo of Meta Celeste, very low resolution, but it is leaked. And according to the information, this will be 70 grams compared to the 50 grams of the Ray-Ban Meta. But as Ian points out, what is just as interesting as the glasses is, of course, the EMG wristband that will reportedly be included. It's the same wristband from Meta's Orion AR glasses demo, and it uses a technology called EMG. And what this allows it to do is to sense the activation of your muscles. And based on that, it can tell exactly where your fingers are without any camera seeing your hand, without having to use expensive, power-hungry computer vision algorithms. But by using a couple of milliwatts, they can know the exact position of your fingers. So that means that you can use very subtle finger gestures to control the interfaces on this Meta Celeste glasses. So you can, one of the examples is that you use your thumb on the side of your index finger as a D-pad, so you can swipe left and right and up and down and then tap against your thumb. Another example is that you can kind of pinch like this and twist, maybe for something like a volume control. You can pinch and pull down and pinch to the right, all kind of interactions that mean that you don't have to swipe on a little touchpad like on Ray-Ban Meta or use your voice, because Google's focus for their demos of their HUD glasses was all about talking to Gemini. And that's maybe fine if you're home, but I strongly believe that people do not want to talk to AI for personal things out in public, in a cafe, on a bus. You're not going to want to, say exactly what you want out loud. So being able to do this could be Meta's big advantage, right? Apple and Google have their advantages of the ecosystem they have, integrating with your phone, integrating with your Google services, your Apple services. So far, while it's entirely possible that Google and Apple could, of course, also implement their own EMG technology, Meta looks like it's ready to ship this wristband series, is its code name, next month with these glasses for $800 for the glasses and the wristband.
Very big deal. We have Arlen in our audience who we've been talking with years almost about this product. We imagine ourselves becoming Wolverine with this product. That's me using the we because Arlen had put that thought in my brain. So I think we're both there. Sorry to use the collective there, but I think that's true. We're both imagining ourselves as Wolverine wearing these, right? And then imagining ourselves sending blades out of our wrists and then feeling haptic vibrations as we see the blades slide out from our fingers. I saw an early version of these being worn by Mark Zuckerberg 3 or 4 years ago now. It's the demo that they tried to get up and running to show off the basic UI stuff that they were hoping to do with this. They couldn't get working in our demo. But you could imagine this having a very simple user interface at first, right? Up, down, left, right. You can get those commands through this, maybe a pinch, right? The thing that breaks my brain here, and you already covered this a little bit, David. I went and met with Google late last year. They showed me their next generation, that they showed me Project Muhan as far as they had taken it to that point. And then I went into a room and talked to their executives. And I asked, are you going to solve typing anywhere on anything? And the Google executive basically said, yeah, that's a solved problem within a year or two. So the idea that you look down and see a keyboard wherever you are and type on it is getting closed in. Like it feels like Apple, Google, and Meta are all closing in on the same place. That within the next few years, you might not need a physical keyboard to just tap out anywhere. You still might need a little bit of haptic feedback to help you with that. You could be provided at the wrist. That would help a lot. There's other solutions that are feasible. There's other like keyboard input systems that could get us inputting things really fast. There was even like a handwriting based one where it'll decode what motions you're making with your hand by making these little motions just getting picked up at the wrist. What I have to point out is this product exists because it's the most obvious route that Mark Zuckerberg and team can think of to doing input anywhere. You pointed out to me, you're going to sit there with it on your side. Don't give away any privacy of what you're interacting with, what messages you're sending. That's phenomenal. What kills me about it is Google and Apple both want the same thing. And I'm losing my train of thought here. I want two of these, one for each hand, to have in VR so that when I put my hands behind my back, the tracking still retains some level of tracking as I go and do that. So I want to be able to reach out of sight and grab something over here with a wristband tracking it as I do it, right? And I'm looking over here, and it's still lost the tracking. If I had a wristband on, hypothetically, it would still retain that ability, right? But I have to buy two of the wristbands in order to do that for VR. Whereas for AR interaction, you only have to do one of the wristbands. This is all to say that Mark Zuckerberg sees this as a very big idea for him. Like, this is the interaction mechanism for AR, and that's why it's getting packaged with these glasses.
Yeah.
But darn it, I just want a VR headset with a pair of these, and I want to see how that feels.
I think you echo a lot of our audience there. They want to see this idea come to VR. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't eventually. I think it makes more sense in AR and for HUD glasses. To be clear, what we're talking about here is not AR, it's a HUD. It makes more sense in smart glasses, let's say, because you don't have the ability to do optical hand tracking at all. You can in theory, but it's very power hungry. So you're going to waste out this tiny little battery in a matter of minutes or an hour, right? The magic of using EMG is that, as I said before, it's a couple of milliwatts. So in VR, you get some minor advantages, like you say, like you go out of the camera tracking field of view, and you can still do finger tracking, sure. Not sixed off hand tracking though. You would only get the kind of movement of your fingers, not the movement of your hand. It's still an interesting advantage, but for smart glasses, you go from having no hand tracking to some. And I think, yeah, Apple and Google want to be here too, but I worry that Google is over-indexing on voice because everything for Google right now across the entire company is about Gemini. How do we put Gemini everywhere? Every demo we saw from Google around their HUD glasses, which they're not shipping as a product yet. It's all just demoware until it ships, but it's all about Gemini. They didn't even show anything to do with hand gestures or touching the side. It was all Gemini do this, Gemini do that, Gemini what's next. And I wonder if Google's push for Gemini is going to kind of make them under index on this. And, when you talked about typing, which is really, really interesting, right? Typing is a solved problem for headsets, or it will be, right? Because you can run these power-hungry, expensive computer vision algorithms on the Samsung headset or on, Quest 3 or Apple Vision Pro. But you can't do this on glasses. So the question is, how do we get to typing on glasses? And how do you type when you don't have a physical surface? Because it comes back to this thing we were talking about earlier about sitting versus standing. All of these turning a surface, the table of your coffee cafe, into a keyboard at any time is great. But what happens if I'm walking down the street? A lot of the time today, everyone in this audience will know this, you're walking down the street and you're typing on your phone, right? You're replying to an important message from a family member or loved one. How do you do that without even having to look down at all? How do you do that with subtle hand gestures? And that's what I think some of the really interesting research around these EMG wristbands are. Not taking like a directly kind of skeuomorphic, how do you literally emulate a physical keyboard? How do you deliver something that can deliver typing, text input, I should say, without a traditional keyboard at all? How do you translate minor movements? And Meta hopes it can get there by just allowing you to do the most subtle movements of your fingers that correspond to a virtual keyboard in front of you. And I think this is going to be a very open design space where they have to learn things from scratch. But you're right to say that they hope that this can be a new interaction paradigm. If you look at what Mark Zuckerberg has said to you and said to others on podcasts, they want this to be the next touchscreen. Like, there are really only two interaction technologies that have taken off in mass market consumers, right? The keyboard and mouse and the touch screen. Nothing else has really taken off, right? Gamers use gamepad controllers with buttons and sticks, but hand that to an average person who doesn't play games and they won't know what to do with it. It never took off as an input device beyond gaming. It doesn't have to. Meta hopes that this ability to do what your mouse does, right? What do you do with a mouse? You translate subtle, tiny movements in 2D, just the 2D position of a mouse, into precise control of a cursor on screen. Well, Meta hopes that with this wristband, they can do the same thing in 3D, translate the precise, minute movements, because in theory, this EMG tech can get sub-millimeter, in theory, eventually, like sub-micrometer, maybe not that far, but very, very, very far into precision, right? When they can get this to sense the precise activation of their muscles, they know exactly where your fingers are because they know where your muscles are. And what's driving your movement, of course, is the muscles. The ability to be able to sit on a train with your hands in your jacket pocket and move your fingers ever so slightly to control a 6-DOF keyboard in front of you and type. I think, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to say it, but there's a potential here that it may be possible to deliver the same kind of typing speed that we have on our touchscreens on our phones, and maybe even better. If they can do even better, then that makes the value of these smart glasses that they want to push out hard to even put into words. Because if you can type faster than you can type on a smartphone and you get a bigger display, that's when you get something that can truly, in the long term, eventually replace the smartphone as the primary computing device for people. Now, all of this is a big ask, and these are big, lofty ideas. As we said about the Samsung headset, it's not real till it ships. We will see what happens. I am very interested to see what the limitations of the first gen, because this is only the first gen of a new technology type, and where does it go? When do we get to this typing? Can they do text input? That is why we keep saying on this show and on UploadVR that when it comes to Meta Celeste, these HUD glasses, the wristband is more interesting than the glasses.
Yep, and that's kind of the story, and I want two of them, right? And this product line has been the most fascinating thing that Meta has been working on for a while now. I've wanted to wear these on my wrist. They're taking their sweet time choosing when to let us all have that.
It may be 6 weeks, right? It may be 6 weeks.
I'm really hopeful that David gets a chance here to really take this for a spin. The I hope they show it with VR, right, David? Like, I hope that there's
I
two demos, right? Two demo rooms, right? And
I
it's
doubt it.
not going to, will it?
I doubt it, but I'll ask for you. I promise you I will be asking. So I will be definitely, if I get a demo of this, which I hope I will and / imagine I will, I will absolutely be asking that for you. Will there be compatibility over with Quest? I think, another thing we have to point out here is that even if you don't believe everything I just said, what happens when you combine it with eye tracking? If you I think there's enough richness of input with an EMG wristband and eye tracking that I think you will be able to surpass the phone when it comes to input, and that's maybe hopeful thinking, but we're gonna see what happens.
I'll throw this out there, and I'm seeing a lot of people talking about voice as the major input. I have dictated about 4 or 5 articles into UploadVR.com's website this year. I did it through the Apple Vision Pro. It was a combination of, thinking before I speak to say the sentence, but also then doing this little pinch maneuver in midair to move a cursor up to the right spot and then delete, 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 and then start writing again. It was pretty. It's not great. It added a lot of time to do voice dictation, but I would have actually lost more time switching between devices than I lost just trying to dictate. And that's a hard thing for people to grasp. Like, oh crap, I actually wasted a bunch of time up there repeating the same phrase 3 times because it didn't properly translate what I was saying. And I still saved more time than if I had been splitting my work across 2 devices, like taking my video on the Vision Pro and then sending it to a laptop and then editing it there and composing all my stuff in 2 different places. Yeah. Do we have one more story here, David?
Yeah, we have one more topic. I think my Quest 3S is lagging a little bit, so I may have to quickly reconnect. I will do so. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I think we've got some kind of maybe it's the same bug that affected me. Just a reminder there to go hit the like button and maybe become a patron or a member over at uploadvr.com to support our work directly. Thank you to everyone who's been with us through this long episode. We've got one more subject here while
one more
David heads
subject.
out. You're not leaving, or you are?
Back.
Okay. Now he appears to be leaving. Yeah. So David will be right back, and the very single-threaded form of input James says about voice, that is a very good point. And James, the thing that I notice about that's really interesting is the focus mode on like Vision Pro, where like now I want these 3 windows right in front of me. Oh wait, forget about that. I want these 2 windows gone. That's when I like to use dictation, when I have a single window right up in front of me. Maybe a reference window over there, but when I can tune out the environment, go full, go to the moon, that's when it feels great to pull this up and go, oh, okay, no distractions here. No one's going to come between me and the sentence I'm about to say. All right, David, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I think we'll just talk about our last topic here. So it is still about these Meta Celeste glasses, Hypernova being the code name. But I've talked about how I am quite hyped about some of the use cases, like being able to read a full message without having to take my phone out of my pocket or scroll down a tiny little smartwatch display, like being able to have, heads up, turn by turn navigation, being able to get the AI responses text instead of audio all the time yapping in my ear. But there is one thing that we are deeply skeptical about when it comes to Meta Celeste, and that is the monocular nature of this heads-up display. And that means that the display is only in one eye, according to all the reports, in your right eye. So there is this, presumably LCOS projector and waveguide display in one eye, and this is one of the reasons why the glasses are going to be 70 grams compared to the 50 grams. You can actually see the Meta Celeste engraving here, by the way. This is why we keep referring to it as Meta Celeste, because in this leaked image found within public firmware by Luna, as you can see on screen, you can see this engraving Meta Celeste. And this image also shows the kind of bulk needed for the right eye's waveguide projector, the LCOS projector. So why is it only in one eye? And what might that mean? while not officially confirming anything, Meta CTO Andrew Bosworth essentially gave the answer to this because he was asked during his Ask Me Anything session on Instagram, the same one that he talked about augments that we talked about earlier in the show. He was asked about this monocular aspect. So here's what he said. He said, monocular displays have a lot going for them. They're affordable, they're lighter, and you don't have the disparity correction. So they're structurally quite a bit easier. On the downside, you have the potential for binocular rivalry because one eye is seeing something, the other eye isn't seeing it, and your brain has to reconcile that. And different people experience that very differently. That's a key one. There are real trade offs here. It's not an easy question. If you go binocular, you more than double the cost because not only do you have to do 2 of everything, you also have to solve the disparity correction or make it super rigid. So there are challenges to going binocular, but at the same time, no rivalry. So what is he saying here? He's saying that the cost to do this in 2 eyes is actually more than just having to add an extra LCOS projector and waveguide because you also have to solve this disparity issue. What does he mean by disparity? Well, this is a big issue with binocular glasses displays, wherein how the frame sits and moves on your face, as well as the flex of the plastic over time, shifts the relative alignment of the images that each eye sees, leading to visual discomfort. So the alignment of these 2 waveguide images becomes slightly out of align. You get kind of this blurry discomfort. And this is
That's why HoloLens suck to look at?
They have a very rigid design. This becomes a problem in glasses where you have more kind of flex. HoloLens was rigid enough that it doesn't matter. This is an issue that we haven't really seen because you haven't seen that many binocular waveguide glasses displays in its form factor, but it is something that Meta talked about being one of the big costs of Orion, one of the big issues and engineering challenges and costs. So I think they didn't really say exactly how Orion solved this, but I imagine it probably has something to do with eye tracking or other position sensors. And as Bosworth mentioned, you can also fix it by just increasing the rigidity of the frame, right? Making it a more like rigid, thick, heavy product, like a headset where you don't have these kind of shifts between the eyes. So that's basically where we are today, right? So it's not just 2 waveguides and 2 LCOS projectors, which are the expensive component here, right? They're the reason that this is going to be $800 compared to the $400 of the Ray-Ban Meta, right? It's that you also have to engineer a solution for this. But that's not to say that this is going to be the case forever. So as the industry scales up, as you get more waveguides being shipped to consumers and more LCOS projectors, the cost will come down. These are not like micro OLED displays. They're difficult to make, but they're understood. It's just a case of scale up, bring down the cost. Right now, they're very niche. And because of that, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, the same that talked about this $800 price, Meta plans to release a binocular successor product to Meta Celeste in 2027, codenamed, believe it or not, Hypernova 2. So that apparently will be a thing in a couple of years. If you want to wait 2 years, you can get Hypernova 2, according to Gurman. Of course, a binocular display will also be required for Meta to eventually launch true AR glasses. Because what's the difference between, we talked about the experiential difference between HUD glasses and AR, right? In HUD, you get this little pop-up, but it's fixed in your vision. So no matter where you move, it's just this little pop-up. It's not there all the time. It just pops up when you need it, but it's fixed in either one eye or in Hypernova 2. It's a binocular image that you see in both eyes. It's a fixed HUD. AR is different, but it's not that different from a hardware perspective. If you added positional tracking to Meta Celeste, you could theoretically, let's say to the binocular version for the sake of comfort, if you added positional tracking to Hypernova 2, technically those are AR glasses. Now, the problem is that the field of view will be very narrow, so you'd only see virtual objects when you're looking directly at them, kind of like the original Snap spectacles from 2021, right? They had a tiny little 27-degree field of view or something like that, 20-something. Fundamentally, the difference between binocular HUD glasses and AR glasses is just that the field of view is wider and there's positional tracking. But right now, we're not even there. We're still at monocular without positional tracking. So I just want to be clear where we are. But what let me say because we need to be careful about the we thing, believe is going to happen, and it seems Meta agrees with this, but we've been saying it for years actually, is that there will be 3 tiers of products. These will not be kind of, you go from Ray-Ban to HUD to AR, and that's the product line. We think that I think that there will be three products, and it seems like the industry agrees. You will have your displayless smart glasses, like your Ray-Ban Metas, that you take out everywhere with you and can get at a low cost. And eventually, I think they're going to get to the same bulk of regular glasses. I think you're going to get slimmer and slimmer from these displayless glasses. They're going to just look like regular sunglasses. They already are only a tiny bit heavier. I think it's 40 grams versus 50 grams. Then in the middle, you will have HUD glasses, which give you, as I've said, your turn-by-turn navigation, your phone notifications, the weather, the time, without having to look down at a tiny little wrist display or take out your phone. And then they kind of have a balance where, they're going from, 40 grams for non-smart glasses, 50 grams for displayless Ray-Ban Meta glasses, 70 grams for HUD glasses. Then I think you'll get the third tier eventually within the next kind of 2 to 5 years, true AR glasses. And these will be, 90 to 100 grams, maybe 80 if they can do some really smart engineering, probably 90 to 100. And they will give you a binocular wide field of view, relatively wide for smart glasses, not wide compared to VR headsets, and your positional tracking. But even when you do use these AR glasses, they will be a superset of these other things. And a lot of the time they will act as them. So the vast majority of the time, you will actually not have the display illuminated at all. They will be acting just like Ray-Ban Meta glasses, giving you kind of audio notifications, a little chirp maybe. And then when something matters to you, maybe you get a notification that shows just the icon of the app and you tap it, or you pinch your finger in a certain way and it pops up. And then the true AR is when, you actually are using virtual objects that need to be positioned and anchored on things. So you get these three tiers: simple smart glasses, AI glasses as Meta calls them, HUD glasses, and AR glasses. And they are tiered because of the price and bulk. $400 or $300, $300 for your simple glasses, $800 for your HUD glasses. And then I think the first AR glasses are probably going to be in the order of $1,500, $2,000.
Some questions about the glasses and what sort of features it might have, how it'll work with others. We're doing a lot of guessing on some things here, whereas David has been pointing out the very real hardware realities of where this is going. But Meta is moving really, really fast with these products. They're updating them almost on a weekly basis. But before you've got the latest update to your phone, or to your glasses, there's almost a new update right behind it. And then people in the comments are bringing up the privacy concerns, and I want to talk about consent there a little bit. I want to point out that Meta used to have the Portal video calling devices that were it was called the Facebook Portal, and they had physical covers you could slide over the lenses to cover up the camera, because Facebook recognized that people really didn't like the idea of having Facebook staring at them all the time. So that product is dead. It died after a couple of years of them really throwing their efforts into that. But they eventually changed. I can't remember what the final design was. But I'm bringing that up because if you go onto the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses subreddits, there's a couple of them out there. The number of people seeking ways to hide the white light on the glasses is extraordinary. And that's extremely upsetting. I think a lot of other companies are watching to see how social acceptance goes of the white light and how it gets used in various ways before pulling the trigger on their own things. And that's a lot of what my reticence around this whole product category is. It all comes down to the analysis of that white light. And this thing that Michael is talking about. Are we feeding Facebook AI with our data? There's a feature that popped up on Reddit. No idea if it's real or not. No idea when it's shipping or if it's shipping. But it seems like the kind of feature that Meta is very likely to add. So let me just
auto capture.
This is a theoretical feature.
It is coming. Auto capture, yeah.
What was that?
Auto capture.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Yeah. 30 minutes of auto capture.
Yes. So the white light would be on. Sorry.
That's coming. Is it there now?
No, it's not. But it is something they're working on. So to describe it, for 30 minutes, the system is recording, and then afterwards, it picks out salient clips and pictures that you might think are useful to have and gives them to you. But to be clear, the white light is still on.
The white light is on, but the people who are being analyzed, the content of that video, the 30 minutes of footage, is going to be analyzed on Meta's servers. Is it not?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So you're talking about being a surveillance drone for 30 minutes, capturing everything around you, and Meta sends you back what it thinks you want from the footage you captured. Is that right?
Yes, but my understanding is they then destroy the original footage from their wording, but we need to see when they ship it. Again,
that doesn't mean they didn't get their analysis first, right? They didn't get the data
we
they
need to
wanted
see
first.
When they ship it, they will have to put out a privacy statement. We'll see what they say then. We all have to come back to what we always say, of course. What matters is what they ship, not what they explore. And yeah, Eric Hartley is asking, would you have to activate? Yes, this would be something you say, Meta start, hey, Meta start auto capture. It's not something that happens without your consent, of course, without you, the wearer, to be clear. I think these are really interesting concerns, and I agree with you very much so that these other companies, Apple and Google, are going to watch the market acceptability. I do think what is clear here when you look at the Ray-Ban Meta glasses and their success, they have sold millions of units. They are literally selling them faster than they can make them. Both Meta and EssilorLuxottica have said that their primary constraint right now is production, and they are moving them to a new factory and trying to scale up. EssilorLuxottica wants to be making 10 million per year by the end of next year. So I think a lot of people who think that this was going to be a product category that just didn't work because of the privacy concerns, I think that's clearly wrong. Now, that doesn't mean the privacy concerns aren't real. It just means that the market is clearly saying that they will still buy them.
I didn't confirm this, so I didn't want to bring it up, but I saw somewhere on some of the Reddit feeds of these glasses being confiscated at airports in some countries. Have you heard that?
Yeah,
Have you seen any confirmation?
I think that was either the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia. It was one of those two where they confiscate them. Yes, and I personally have no plans to ever go to the UAE or Saudi Arabia, so it doesn't bother me.
But I mean, so I've actually taken to using Threads now solely to sort of document the videos that are getting made by the Meta glasses that are showing new glorious forms of human interaction that have never been captured by cameras before. And it's a whole lot of fighting, right, that are getting posted by these glasses. That's what's getting... That's what's circulating, and I'm seeing someone in our comments saying, "But you can imagine the youth when you hide." Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying you're cherry picking. You're saying that's what's being done. You're cherry picking what is the worst of what millions of people are doing, and you can find so many videos on Instagram and TikTok of people fighting recorded by smartphones. And before smartphones were even a thing, you had, what was it called? There's a website back in the 2000s called WorldStar or something, where people would post videos from their camcorders of people fighting. I don't think that's unique to this.
Oh, sure. No, it's the scale. It's never unique. It's always the scale. That's what we argue about constantly. Is the scale too much, right?
But sorry,
is it too much of this? And one of the videos is a guy who's sitting in a driver's seat of a supercar, and he's about to drive the supercar. He's paid for an experience of some kind. And the guy sitting next to him is giving him a rundown. At the very end of the rundown, it says, "And if you're wearing Meta glasses, you have to take them off." And the guy goes, "Oh, okay." And that's the end of the recording. The guy then posts that video to the last second of he was allowed to post to this community, going, "I was not allowed to use my glasses at the supercar event." It's like an appeal to a community of this is ill justice, right? And okay, fine, right? The supercar company gets to set the rules for the supercar company if you don't want to wear glasses or wear glasses. But one at a time, every single business and social club and group across America is learning how to deal with the fact that anyone you piss off can activate a white light and then smile at you in the grossest way imaginable until you get out of their face. Sure, and maybe that's, is that the way human interaction is going to go in the future? Okay.
What do you mean the future? Do you use Instagram or any of these social media? People have these videos with their phones. I've been seeing these videos for 15 years. I don't use Instagram.
Every social media that I use is because I have to now.
Let me just make the point here. I've been seeing what you've been describing for 15 years on the social media. It's
And have you
what's
noticed the
difference?
scale change?
No, this has been a thing for years. You hold up a phone and you can record someone. People do it all the time. There's so many videos. If you look for the worst of human beings on the internet, you'll find it. You'll see people. Why does it matter? What's the difference between a white light on glasses versus holding my phone like this? I can smile at someone and argue with them and make them fight while going like this. The only difference is I have one hand free. I guess I could join the fight. I guess that's the one difference. You could be swinging as well. But most of these fights, I don't think are that kind of conflict. You're talking about people shouting at each other. There's no difference in just picking up your phone and recording.
We've had this argument before, and you're always good at pointing out the past analogies, like the way things have always been. And I have to point out things like, what?
I think these analogies are useful because they're echoes through history. These things cycle and they repeat.
But we have to talk about how it's different too.
Sure.
What is different about this one?
Sure, but I don't think it's as different as you think. I think we're already in this world where everybody's got a dash cam on their car recording everything 24/7 with no white light. Everyone's got a doorbell on their door recording everything. How many do the local government have cameras on every pole?
People are pointing out the devil's advocacy right here. The white light is a stand-in for human decency.
So I could just say holding your phone up is a stand-in for human decency.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just saying I don't think this changes anything unique. People have been able to
record. The human decency is becoming more separated from our it's becoming, the scale of this is getting worse, is my point. You're saying it's always been like this, but it is not. It is not the same. A few people were producing those videos for Instagram in 2007, then a lot in 2010, and then everyone by 2015.
Yes,
now we just have a few people producing these with glasses, and then everyone in 5 years. And I'm saying that the human decency of human interaction, of defusing these things before they start, of viciously recording one another, right? That means some kind of pushback. Like there has to be some kind of like, look, don't record me, man. Come on, let's just talk it out.
I agree with that. I completely agree with you on that. I think it really does not diffuse the situation or de-escalate to start recording someone. The only pushback I have is that this is something that happens today. And I don't think it's the phone or the glasses that causes it. I think these are separate things, and these are just the tools that people are using to record these conversations. But that's all I'm pointing out. I think it's valid to say that this changes the dynamic, but I see these videos. I've seen these videos for a long time. Some people are dicks. If you look for the worst of human behavior, you're going to find it on the internet.
I'm not talking about the internet. I'm talking about reality. I'm looking for finding good behavior in other humans and being motivated to foster that good behavior with one another, and not being motivated to record the worst and broadcast it. Like how do I? Yeah, but it just feels like another barrier between us to have a white light speaking up for what I should say to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think people should be recording each other like that. I don't think we disagree on that. All I'm saying is I don't see the difference. If I was bringing a legitimate grievance to someone in public and they started holding their phone up like this, that is no more or less offensive than if a white light started appearing in their glasses. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, yeah.
I mean, and look, when you come to the
it's
thing
more offensive because I got to stare at the smile right next to the phone. But whatever.
Why can't you smile while you're holding the phone up? I can smile and hold my phone up.
It's a photographer thing in me. The photographs I take with the smart glasses are different than the photographs I take with a traditional camera, because the people are making eye contact with me. So I'm making eye contact with a person that's grinning with me with an evil grin, while the eye is just 2 inches away from this evil grin. It's like a little bit more agitating than like, I don't know, the other thing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
That you're entitled to that opinion if that's more agitating to you. I
haven't been recorded by. I haven't gotten into one of these interactions yet.
Nor have I. And I'm just wondering, are you over-indexing on a small number of horrible people on the internet and thinking, when you spend time in public, you walk around Central Park. Have you seen any of this in real life? I think sometimes these algorithms on these platforms show us the worst of human behavior. That's all I'm saying. And we can get this idea in our minds that the world is falling apart and society's collapsing. And I get that too, of course, on X and Instagram. And then you go and walk in the park. And
is that what it is? Have we gone full circle here, David? That the 30-minute capture is just going to let Meta provide you the best part of those 30 minutes and get those good vibes going on the internet instead of the bad vibes? Is that the dream?
That's a great question. I wonder how the auto capture will prioritize. It reminds me of Google Clips. This may be something that people remember. Google launched a camera in, I think, 2017. That the idea was it was a home camera, a little clip camera that you clipped in the corner of your kid's room or something, and it would use Google servers. It would constantly record, and it would use Google servers to then send you the best images and videos throughout the day. It failed because it was always in the wrong position. It maybe came too early before technology was ready. The AI wasn't there, but it's an interesting kind of idea. We let's definitely follow up on that thing. I see, some people saying, is this just a UK thing where I'm used to recording? I don't think I'm wrong in saying that the adoption of dash cams in the United States is pretty damn high, right? Like most new cars now have them built in. So these dash cams record 24/7. Like people keep saying always recorded. These glasses don't always record. You would nuke the battery. We can talk about maybe future models do that. But right now, if you recorded always, they can't even record always. The limit is 3 minutes at a time. If you try to do too much of them on a hot summer day, they'll overheat and you'll get a white light. So the difference is the dash cam is always recording, as is the doorbell, right? When you walk past someone's door that has one of those Ring doorbells or Nest doorbells or whatever, you're recorded always. I think the people who don't think they're being recorded would be shocked how many recordings there are of you out there when you walk down New York on your daily commute. I think so many of those cars are recording you in their dash cam. So many of those doorbells are recording you. And I don't know, maybe it's different in New York, but I walk into London and I see people making a TikTok in every street. That my only argument is I think we're in that world. I think there's a big difference. Google Glass, one of the reasons it failed 10 years ago was because we weren't in that world. And I think so many people prognosticated that the Meta Ray-Ban glasses would fail because of this same issue. And you've seen some, there was an article in The Verge recently, which I found interesting, by someone who was admitting they were wrong. They were saying, I thought the Google Glass thing would happen with Ray-Ban Meta, but we have this sales figures, we have these usage figures. And then they also said something even more interesting, that in their daily life, they've seen so many of them in the past 6 months that they've just had to accept that they're wrong, that the idea that people would not buy these glasses because of privacy reasons is not true. That doesn't mean that the concerns are wrong. Those are fine. I'm just pointing out when it comes to the market, it's clearly not something people care about. And I've seen this myself, right? When I was on my break, my summer vacation, I saw these things. I was on a train and I turned to my right and I almost did a double take because the guy was wearing the Ray-Ban Meta glasses sitting right next to me. I went to a concert and I would, because of this, I was kind of like looking at people's glasses. I saw multiple people at this concert who were wearing the glasses. And here's the crazy part. Nobody cared. Nobody in the train cared. Nobody there cared. Maybe they cared in their minds. I can say nobody externally cared. None of these people recorded anything that I could see. Maybe they might have recorded the stage or something, but so is everyone else holding up their phone. I think all I'm trying to say is all of these concerns could be completely valid, right? And let's put that aside for a second. If you look at the sales figures, if you look in the real world, the market clearly doesn't care yet. And I think that's why you see the reports. I see so many people asking in the comments, what about Apple? Is Apple joining in here? Well, I think that's why you see Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reporting that Apple is accelerating its plans. I think they've let Meta be the guinea pig, and they've now seen the market wants it. I'm actually in the middle of writing an article in the moment called Anyone and Everyone is Making Smart Glasses, because you'd be shocked how many startups are making these. As a commenter pointed out, HTC's just announced their own Vive Eagle, their own glasses. They are not chasing nothing here. You could be completely right that in 2 years it evaporates, but right now this is one of the fastest growing area. In fact, it is the fastest growing area in consumer tech hardware.
Yeah, you've nailed a lot of stuff there. I want to talk about a couple of the comments before we head to the end of the show here. It was Geek Odin saying, I'll still tell someone holding a phone to F off if I suspect they are recording. I can't do that with glasses because it's not clear if they are recording. And then Jorgensen replying, it's not clear when a pair of glasses have a clearly visible light on them. And I'm inserting my own tone over your phrasing, Jorg. So forgive me for being a little tricky there. But I can't always see the white light on the interior of the glasses, let alone the white light on the exterior of the
one on the exterior is brighter, and when it's recording video, it pulses. It doesn't just illuminate, it pulses, and I think that's pretty noticeable. I understand why maybe on a very bright day you wouldn't see it, but I've had other people use it to try it. you would have to be you'd have to be visually impaired to not see it in most circumstances. It's a pulsing white light at the corner of
I mean, to not see it, it's like you have to be looking for. Like, it's also, remember the old experiment about the gorilla, right? They did an old experiment where they distracted a person, and then they had a gorilla walk through the scene in front of them, and then afterwards they said, "Did you see the gorilla?" I think it was maybe on a videotape or something.
I think that comes down to the social acceptability thing. If you're talking about the situation where you're coming up with this scenario of the worst of human behavior, where you're in an argument with someone, you're going to notice if you're right in front of them. Maybe at a distance, maybe I can accept it. But I see Jack B echoing what I'm saying, where they say you're nuts if you think that thing isn't a beacon. But absolutely, if you're not, you're right to say, and that's completely right to say, if you don't know what to look for, you wouldn't. But I think once we see Apple and Google and all these companies enter, it's going to become a normal thing, just like with smartphones. And there's one thing I want to analogize when you're talking about the whole, the supercar race where they told them to take it off. How many cafes 10 years ago had no smartphones, no iPhone, and a big sign on the outside, and you come in and take out your iPhone? No, not here. We don't do that. You talk to people. You don't take your iPhone out. How many do you see in 2025? These are normal parts. And, I know that,
But there's also still locations where you bag the phones, right? Where you have to you're requested to bag the phones, right?
But very few of them. And they've been mostly taken out of the market because people just go somewhere else. That's what I'm saying. I find these echoes of history useful. One of my real passions and interests is the history of consumer technology and adoption. It's so interesting to see these echoes throughout time. Even headphones. There was a big push against headphones. Firstly, people said
newspapers, David, right? Everyone reading the newspaper. It's a classic thing, right? How socially disorienting is it to have every person on the subway car have the newspaper up in front of them, literally paper blocking them from looking at the other members? I get it, yes.
And there's a pushback against books as well.
But it's all these illuminate the changes of society, is I guess what we're doing. We're both circling. And anyways, this has been a wonderful discussion here. I love that our audience has responded to it. David and what I loved that I learned from our audience today here, David, is that our audience knows that we agree on most things, but they want to hear us debate the things that we disagree on really, really clearly. And that's fascinating to hear from our audience. So message received there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the interesting topics are. It's not an easy discussion if everyone agrees about everything. And I'm really glad to see that our audience has a very diverse set of views here as well. We have people on both sides, people who feel one way about this and one way about the other. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this develops over time. There's a lot of open questions here about this acceptability. Apple, as you say, will be watching very, very carefully. There's always a chance that Apple, cancels it. But I think it's fascinating to see Mark Gurman's report saying that Apple it's pretty much Ray-Ban Meta, but with Siri, is what he's describing Apple's glasses as. And I don't think you would have had Apple ever go first on that.
Yeah, let's see if there's any last comments. Ian, I don't disagree with your comments about the changes in society. I disagree with your habit of only bringing it up when we were talking about Meta. Fair. I will say that Meta has spent, it's a double-edged sword there. Meta sometimes looks for getting credit for having spent $100 billion plus on this market. Well, we've given you the coverage that you paid for, right? You didn't pay us. You put products into the market and we covered what their impact was, right? Now, let's move on, right? People are using those products, not using those products. Let's talk about the goods and the positives of it. But you can't both criticize us for covering Meta so much because they spent $100 billion actually putting products into the market when nobody else would, and then not also talk about the fact that they've set social norms and all of that stuff. They're out on their own, and they know that they're setting those sorts of social norms. I don't know. Anything else there, David?
I was just going to say that we get people saying that we are too pro-meta, and we get people saying that we're too anti-meta. And I think that's a very good sign, because I think if you're hearing it from both sides, it probably means that you are keeping it pretty neutral. If it was all one side or all the other, it would be frustrating. But I promise you, we really do play no favorites, especially in internal discussions.
Let me say, my dream is a standalone VR headset that does not require me to log into a specific account to use its best features.
And look,
Apple doesn't provide that. Meta doesn't provide that. Steam doesn't provide that yet necessarily. I hope they do, but I doubt they will. I think it's going to require a Steam account, but maybe they'll surprise us. But that's my model in my head. I don't want to be forced to log into a specific company's repository of information on me in order to use virtual reality and mixed reality. David, do you feel the same way?
I don't mind an account because look, you need an app store at the end of the day. Maybe you don't want to just sideload everything. Personally, I'd find the convenience of, I don't mind making a Steam account to use Steam. I don't mind having a PlayStation account to use my PlayStation. I don't mind having a Nintendo account to use my Switch. I respect your views different, but I am okay with having to have an account.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I mean, I don't know how I can explain my bias any more clearly than that, right? VR is a beautiful place that offers people amazing places they can go to. It's an escape. It's a place of focus when you need it. And I would like to go there no matter who I log into first. So, I don't know. All right. I think we'll see you next week. Please tune in to the VR Sideload episode. Go give a push if you can to the trailer that's going to premiere from Super RC. Pretty cool trailer showing the features of that app. I don't want to say too more before we actually premiere the trailer and the article, but neat app, and devs need your support now more than ever. In any way, shape, or form you can throw at them. If there is an app you believe in, a place you believe in visiting in virtual reality, now is a wonderful time to tell a friend about that place, to send that link to others. Try to spread the love, because the winds are blowing against all of the developers out there trying to get their works downloaded. So thank you. We'll see you in the future.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really enjoy having you all here. Please give us your takes in the comments, and particularly in the comments under our articles. We will be able to see those far more readily and respond far more easily. So please go to the source article on UploadVR.com and leave your comment there if you really want to definitely get a reply or get a discussion going if it's something spicy. But if you don't want to, you can also comment on YouTube. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you in the future.